Yeah.
sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't, whatever. Okay. But from all the, without getting into everything, I mean, if you want to, or maybe somebody says something in the comments, but essentially I feel like the Jesus that everybody's talking about, especially Christians who lived when they say he lived, who did what they said he did, who looked the way that he looked, and all that stuff, all the way he's portrayed, is not a real individual. Okay, it's a composite. It is a composite, but more than that, it is a, what's the word? It is a principle.
Yeah.
They created a principle.
Yeah.
Okay, they created somebody who, in the ancient world, the type of person that everybody, and also obviously in the modern world, you have a billion people admire this type of person very, very much. Right? It's like it's like human beings created a really, really, really good. By the way, it's 1:33. A really, really, really good prototype that they want to look to as the ideal of perfection.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when people start talking about the historicity, whether or not Jesus was a real historical character, that's when it gets silly, because the first actual, like, if you're going to be academic about it, right, the first actual recorded evidence that we have in the historical record apparently is, I can't remember who's first. There's two of them. There's Tacitus, the Roman historian, anti-Semite guy, by the way. And Pliny the Younger. Pliny the Younger, not Pliny the Elder. Pliny the Younger.
Pliny,
okay?
Not Pliny.
No, not Pliny is a word that Jews use for so and so. But I'm talking about Pliny. Pliny is an actual person. There are a few actual people named Pliny. So Pliny is a Roman dude.
Yeah.
Pliny the Younger, not the Elder.
His name was Gaius Plinius Caecilius Secundus, born Gaius Caecilius or Gaius Caecilius Silo, better known as Pliny the Younger, was a lawyer, author, and magistrate of ancient Rome. Pliny's uncle, Pliny the Elder, helped raise and educate him. Pliny the Younger wrote hundreds of letters, of which 247 survive, and which are of great historical value. Some of them are addressed to reigning emperors or to notables such as historian Tacitus. Pliny served as an imperial magistrate under Trajan. That's another wonderful person.
Yeah, but what I wanted to, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to say before you get too far that these guys lived like 100 and.
He was born. Pliny was born in 61 CE and passed away 113. So he would have lived after whatever people say.
Right, and by the way, Pliny.
Speaking of 33.
Right, and by the way, and both of them didn't actually name Jesus. They just said they talked about a
Nazarene guy.
No, they didn't talk about any guy. They talked about a group of people. That with the wording that they used, modern academics, they interpreted to mean the Christians.
Yeah,
it's not even really that clear.
I mean, the Christians were they would be talking about Jews at that time, like Jews who are a particular sect.
Possibly.
Anytime you talk about Christians up until the year, I don't know, 200 something, you're talking about Jews. You know.
Possibly. I mean, that is a possibility. It's also, there's other possibilities too. Okay. But that is one of them. Yeah. I mean, it could just be a Jewish political faction that challenged the Roman Empire.
That's what we were saying yesterday, that the Romans could have created this guy to, as a scarecrow to go against the Jewish political faction. And then rabbis could have created this guy to make like a thing, like, don't go against us.
It's sort of like, can I give you, I was thinking about, I was working on this metaphor.
Yeah.
I was working on this metaphor.
No.
Not working on it, just came to me, really. I was thinking. It's like a game of tennis.
Yeah.
You have two opposing sides. One of them created the tennis ball.
Yeah.
Okay. And this tennis ball was this like idea, this like political idea, this like emotional like story about this type of person, right?
Mhm.
And to use it as a tool, a political tool against their political enemies, the Jews.
Yeah.
Okay, so they used it and they served it like freaking like Andre Agassi or whoever, like who's the Djokovic, who's the best
server? The best
the
server?
fastest server, the best
Andy Roddick, whatever.
Andy Roddick, right? They served it like Andy Roddick, you know what I mean? And then so the rabbis they built their own tennis racket, right, to hit that same concept back. So that's been going back and forth like this since then, basically. Okay, but
nobody wants this guy.
Right, but no, the Christians want him.
No, the Christians do, but I'm saying the Romans.
But they want to use them. Part of what they want him for is to use them against the Jews, for those Christians that do that.
You see,
I would say the majority in the world, not in America, but in the rest of the world. Okay.
Well, because Catholicism is when it really took.
Whatever the reason is, so basically, then the Jews, since this tennis ball was coming at them, they tried to divert it and send it back.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not a perfect metaphor, folks. Okay, but that's kind of how I see it. All right. And again, this is just how I see it. I'm not declaring Psak Din here.
Yeah.
Tell the folks at home what Psak Din.
We're not ruling halakha.
We're not making decrees here. We're just kind of saying what we say.
Interpreting what we've seen.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, the reality is, was there a Jewish guy who started his own following, who was preaching that the kingdom of God is at hand and that the Roman Empire was going to fall down?
Can I say,
wait. Yes, the answer is yes. There was about 1,000 of them. There was 1,000 of them.
That's number one. Number two, the main guy who started, people think it was Yoshka, but it was this Paul guy. He was Jew,
No, you're talking about Paul, who's the one who really who really
brought it to the non-Jews, to the
who
pagans.
made the Jesus story popular to the non-Jews. That's what you're saying. Right. Okay. So that's kind of how, it spread out, whatever the Jesus story was at that time.
Yeah.
Okay. And we know that's not what exists today, because today the stories that you have, they were decided upon at the Council of Nicaea.
Yeah.
It's a much later date.
Yeah, they basically said, let's all agree on what this is so that we don't kill each other, and then they still continue to kill each other anyway.
Right, things happen. So basically, whatever it was, so the Talmud, so very often Christians they want to either both use the Talmud, but also, now some Christians, I would say, again, when I say Christians who are like, let's say generally anti-Jew, I'm talking about like the majority of Christians like outside of the United States and a significant portion in the United States as well. But I'm also very, very aware that there's millions of Christians in the United States and also probably spread out around the world, in smaller.
Especially speaking of Africa, a lot of African Christians
that don't hate Jews.
African Christians love Israel. You see always see them.
Well, I'm sure there's anywhere you go that you're going to find a medley, a potpourri.
Yes.
Okay. So basically, so Christians, they would, and there have been famous disputations about this, that the Talmud talks about Jesus and that it says bad stuff about him.
Yeah.
Okay. But I would say there are famous, and these disputations, what I'm talking about are these famous debates that occurred in the medieval times between rabbis and Christian.
Barcelona is the famous one with Ramban.
Right. By the way, most of the time, the Christians that the rabbis were debating were Jews.
Converts, like Pablo Cristiani.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like almost every time. It's absolutely terrifying. Okay? So it's just very sad, is what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay. And in my opinion, like from all the ones that I met, the best one by far is the Disputation of Barcelona.
Yes.
In 1263.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that one really talks about that Jesus was not mentioned in the Talmud. Okay.
So
you have so basically there's there's a word that the Talmud uses. Okay, there are several references in the Talmud that people want to connect Jesus to. Why? Because they talk about a type of person, and we're talking about several different individuals that the Talmud mentions that lived in different time periods, right? But the word Yeshu is used. So people stretch that to mean Jesus.
Mhm.
But every time that these people are discussed in the Talmud by the rabbis, they're talking about different people who caused political upheavals and Jews to move away from the faith to practice idolatry, right? And to cause like a lot of problems for the community in general. And these are several individuals, that lived at completely different times, okay? And all of them were referred to as Yeshu.
Yeah.
Why? Because that wasn't really their name. So why did they use the word Yeshu? So Yeshu is not really a word. It's an acrostic.
Yeah.
Okay? Because Yeshu is spelled with 3 Hebrew letters. Yud, Shin, and Vav. Okay? So Yeshu, it's an acrostic. It's an acronym. It stands for Yemach, Shemo, V'Zichron, which means may his name be blotted out from memory.
My friend, you know that my friend used to teach in a Syrian high school, and then when he was he was Jewish history, he was talking about contemporary Israel history, and he started talking about the 67 war and 73. He got to talking about the Arabs. All the Syrian kids would just yell out, "Oh, these Yemach Shemams." They just yell it out. Yemach Shemams.
Right. So there were plenty of people who deserve that title, unfortunately. Right? A person who they didn't even want to say him by name.
Yeah.
And they
May
just
their names be erased.
May their names be erased. So they're not going to say their name. Oh, here's
Hitler Yemach Shemam.
Right. Here's Archibald. May his name. I'm not going to say his name. Okay. They're trying to erase it. They're not talking about Jesus, who the Christians are describing at all.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll read you some of the quotes from the Talmud that people really bend themselves hard to try to attribute to Jesus. Even though we're talking about several, you'll see. Okay. So it says that, okay, this is a translation. I'm trying to translate it. Our rabbis taught Yeshu from Nazir, from what's the word? How do we translate this properly? It's not the Nazarene.
Yeah.
Okay. It could be, I think the word was Notzri. You know what? Let me see in the actual.
The Notzri is like a
person
from Nazareth.
No, dude. Sanhedrin, not necessarily. Sanhedrin 43. For the folks at home, you can go to Safaria, right, and look up. And don't look at the translation. Look at the Hebrew. If you can know how to read Hebrew, look at the actual word. The translation that you're seeing there, not necessarily correct. Okay, so tell us Sanhedrin 43a. 1 second. 43a, 43a, 43a. Sorry, 43a. Almost there. 43a, 43a. Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin. I have the short-term memory of a sea slug, so I have to keep saying that. Sanhedrin. I said 43a, right? God,
yes, sir.
I believe I almost forgot it. 43a. Okay, so let me find it. One second. Our notes are necessary to write with regard. Okay, almost there. Pop up at this Tana. Baraita said it's stated here. Elsewhere, not been stated. Where Moses was sitting. Nope. Implementation written. The children of Israel. Almost there, folks. Sorry, we're reaching the end. Do you learn from all this? She teaches Rav Huna. Second. The sword by which he is killed. Go to the cloth. Second. Court is obligated. Damn, dude. How long is this page? Second. Sorry, folks. We got to put on some elevator music while
yes,
something.
I'm gonna put on
Like the Jeopardy.
Yes.
People are used to that. They'll wait for, while listening to the Jeopardy tune. But you know what? Put on the
It's something that happened to them with
the Stranger Things intro. They'll listen to that forever. They'll forget about the podcast.
Let's see. I've never this.
Yeah. Can't hear it that well, but one day, folks.
Sounds like it's like a Tron.
No, it was what we were talking about last time. The equipment.
Yeah.
They use the old ladies' equipment, the analog stuff.
Yes.
I found it.
You found it?
Yeah.
Oh, let me hold on. I gotta fade out.
Yeah, no problem.
Fading out, and we faded out. All right.
Tolahu, let's see, Liyeshu v'chakroz yotze lifanov miyom Yeshu yotze laskil. 1 second. Israel Mishu. Okay, so it says here Yeshu. Okay, but let me look up the word Hakros, because the word Nazareth is nowhere in this vicinity at all. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They just stick shit in there.
Yeah.
Okay, Karuz is a public announcement. Okay, 1 second. So the crier goes out, a public announcement. The Fanov before him. Okay, that yes, from the outset, but isn't it taught? Hold on. Karuz the Fanov ein mikro. Yotze leaskil al shikarov hasit v'hadeach et Israel kol minish yadea. Where does it say? Oh. See, the translation has the word, the eve of Pesach. I don't see the word Pesach anywhere in the Hebrew text. Do you see? It's basically
looking in the wrong place.
No, Sanhedrin 43a, line 20. If you can bring your attention there.
Sanhedrin what?
Sanhedrin 43a, line 20. Oh, I see why this is the Steinsaltz. Okay, no, but still, I mean the text. Oh, the Erev Pesach. I see it. It's the last two words.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's zechut. Okay. Et Israel kol meishir the lo zechut. Okay. So the only word here that is used that people try to tie this to Jesus that the Christians are talking about is the word Yeshu. There's no Nazareth here. There's no nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or they might as well have said Jesus the Nazareth, the Messiah, the God. They could have put all of that in there. I'm sure some of them want to.
Yeah, it says Jesus Nazareth. No, here, well, the English.
Do you see in the Hebrew anywhere the word Nazareth or anything even similar to it? Sometimes you have the word Notzri.
Hold on. Yeshu Yotza Liska. Oh.
It's just Yeshu. And by the way, the Hakaroz, you see that word Karuz?
Yeah.
That just means a public announcement. That's not the name of a town. Okay, so the guy they're talking about here.
I don't see any.
So the guy they're talking about here is a person. It's not talking about Jesus. It's talking about a guy that did a bunch of bad stuff, and they don't want to say his name. I wish they would do that nowadays, by the way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like don't make these people famous, but whatever. Okay?
Yeah. Mousy.
So that's
because he practiced sorcery inside the idol worship, led the Jewish people astray.
Right. That's a guy who they call Yeshu, who practiced idolatry, led people astray. But it was the Christians who first tried to connect that description with that. They're trying to say that we're saying something about the Jesus that you guys are talking about.
Yeah. By the way, this is a stoned him, hung his corpse. The Romans didn't hang his corpse; they crucified him alive.
According to that story, right? Yeah. But by the way, for the folks at home, if you'd like to know how many Jews were crucified by the Romans,
like everybody,
tens of thousands.
Yeah,
not everybody, but tens of thousands.
It was one of the preferred ways of.
And it took between 4 and 7 days to die.
Yeah.
And Christians, they describe Jesus, he died in like 4 hours or 6 hours.
Yeah.
That alone would be a miracle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's what they claim.
Right.
They claim
Right.
that the whole thing was that was a miracle, and then he rose and whatever.
And that punishment was reserved specifically for people who were accused and, quote unquote, convicted, as if there was a real court system there, of trying to bring down the Roman Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So any one of those people was a kind of like a prototype for this Jesus that they concocted.
Yeah.
This that Christians pray to and describe. Right? So that's just one part. So another reference that was for the folks at home. That was Sanhedrin 43a. The next one we're going to look at is Sanhedrin 107. It uses the word Yeshu there, right? And it talks about somebody that offended his teacher by paying too much attention to an innkeeper's wife.
Yeah.
And by the way, this particular this event happened like 100 years before Jesus was supposed to have been living. Okay, so each one of these things that I'm going to mention, they happen completely different time periods, right? They're like all over the spectrum, and none of them happened exactly when Christians are saying Jesus should have been living. A lot of them happened way before.
Come back and say, well, it doesn't matter. It's the idea. It's this. It's that.
Okay, so if that's what you're saying, right, then you can't say. If you're saying to me, if you're a Christian, you're saying to me, it's the idea that's important, not the historicity. It's about the feeling, the faith, the ta. Okay, but don't try to say that it's accurate to the text.
Not only that,
and it's it's found in the Talmud, and that it's some kind of it's historical.
Yeah, and not only that, our calendar is based on his life.
Right, on that timeline that Christians keep so like clockwork, right? So basically, I mean, there's other reasons for that besides, there's deeper reasons, beyond the surface layer of what people call Christianity. There's a whole underbelly of like hermetic, secret society type stuff that the reasons for that is like astronomical stuff and, stuff that the ancients knew. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, okay. So again, the word Yeshu is used. So they say, oh, that's Jesus. See? No. Okay. So, and then you have in the Talmud, you have a volume called Gittin, which is about, it's the laws of divorce. Okay. On page 56b and 57a, there's a story told about Onkelos, who is the primary translator of he did the first major translation of the Torah into Aramaic. He was a Roman convert. Okay, he was actually, I think, the nephew of Titus. Okay, the Emperor Titus, the one who actually.
Well, there's that story. This guy. Actually, it was funny. Yesterday, there was a guy at Shalashudas, an Israeli guy, told a story of Onkelos, how Uncle Titus was very upset that his nephew converted. This is a story in the Gemara. We don't know if this is a true story, but it's a story in the Gemara. And he sent like a unit, like a military unit, to go retrieve Onkelos. And basically when they got there, the first unit he sent, Onkelos was like started telling them about Judaism, and they all converted. So then Titus got wind of this, and he was like, okay, sent another troop, and he told these guys, do not talk to him about Torah. Whatever you do, talk to him anything about Torah. They talked to him, and he sets them up. I remember the details, but basically,
he sent entire legions of Roman.
So he converted those the second, and then the third the guys told him straight up, don't talk to him at all. And then so what happened was they didn't talk to him, they didn't answer any of his questions, they didn't respond to him, and then they were leaving. As they were leaving his house, they finally got him out of the house. He asked them, do you know what this thing is? He puts a mezuzah, and none of them answer. And then he's like, this is so and such and such and such. Who protects you? The one who something like this object, or the one who told you to put this object on the wall? Who's your protector? The king or the one? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So basically, they listen to him, and the third troop, all three troops converted to Judaism, and that's basically the what's his name? He basically gave up. He gave up trying to get his nephew back.
Yeah. So this guy Onkelos, right, in the Talmud. By the way, that I think that account that you were just talking about, I mean, that was probably a Godic on some level.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like whether or not it literally occurred.
Yeah.
The way that the story was constructed was it's coded text with a lot of concepts built into it.
As we know from Rabbi, what's his name, Earl Wine.
Earl Wine, yeah.
He used to say two things. He said if the story is not true, then it should be true, and they don't tell stories like that about you or me.
I agree. I agree with that sentiment. I just don't believe that what he said applies to anything like from the Masorah, like either the Talmud or Midrash or Godic or Tanakh. I think now I'm not sure, but I think he was probably talking about like stories of tzaddikim.
Yeah, like what's his name? Karl Bach and
like when
even Baal Shem Tov.
Right. When basically the attitude is like this. I've heard it a different way, what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
If you hear stories about our heroes, right, from the recent past or slightly further back in time, from medieval times, whatever, right? If you believe them, you are a fool.
Yeah.
But if you don't believe them, you're a heretic.
Yes.
Right. So there has to basically, it's like, there has to be like some balance. Like
believe the message, not necessarily the story, but believe the message.
Right. And also like you said, what Vera Wine said, that they're not writing stories like that about you and me. So, just take that into account why something like this got out about this person. Okay. And, these people didn't have hype men.
Mm-mm.
They didn't have heralds.
Nope.
Announcing their arrival, saying, "Oh, this guy's awesome." It just was.
Yep.
So Onkelos, who lived, I think 1800 years ago, maybe more. I'm not sure, maybe less, somewhere around that time. It was more, like 1900 years ago.
He lived from 35 to 120 CE.
Okay.
Oh, he lived till he was 85 years old. Huh?
Yeah. So right. So he, again, Roman guy, nephew of Titus the emperor, the same one who, when he was a general, apparently broke down the second temple. Okay?
And he has Onkelos is one of the main commentators on the Chumash.
That's actually right. You see, what I said about him before was that he was a translation. He translated the Torah into Aramaic, which is it sounds like, it looks like a similar language to Hebrew, but it's the conversational language that most of the Middle East spoke.
It's actually, if you watch Passion of the Kavizil.
Actually, I don't recommend watching that movie if you want to hear Aramaic, because even Christians who speak Aramaic, perhaps like Hadass, right?
Yeah.
I've heard from them that they butchered it horribly. That it was
at least it was an attempt. At least it was. A lot of people were saying it was at least a thing of like, instead of making, how they make every movie with like British actors.
I know it would have been, honestly, I'll tell you, it would have been better.
British.
It would have been better, because if you're gonna do a language, then do it right. Then hire. Well, you're not gonna get yeshiva guys to participate in this. Yeah. But there's other people that speaks different versions of Aramaic.
There's what are they called? Assyrians
in Syria and around the Middle East that still speak a dialect of Aramaic. You could use them, and it wouldn't have been as embarrassing. But anyway, so I'm not going to give tips to Mel Gibson on how to Farrakhan us for the rest of his life.
Yes.
So Gibson and Farrakhan, same guy. Anyway, so basically,
one is actually a talented director, right? I gotta give that.
Right. So just, I'm just gonna bring it back to the original thing, so we can get through this. So basically, there's in Gittin, in the volume of Talmud, which is called Gittin, Gittin,
which talks about laws of like divorce and stuff.
The laws of divorce, right? So page 56b and 57a, right? So Onkelos, this famous convert who translated into Aramaic, but see, there's no such thing as a translation.
Yeah.
So even though it was a translation, it was primarily a commentary. So it's one of our oldest commentaries on the Torah.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a story about him that's brought in the Talmud. It says that he summoned the spirit of Yeshu, who, of course, Christian priests, Catholic priests in the Middle Ages, they wanted to say that this story is referring to Jesus, that we're talking about Jesus here. But it's just somebody named Yeshu, who's a person, one of hundreds, okay, who caused a lot of problems. Okay, so he called upon the spirit of one of these guys, okay, a person who sought to harm Israel, from one of us, a Jew who sought to harm Israel, okay, from that generation.
Sir, before
he describes his punishment in the afterlife as boiling in excrement. So of course Christians want to say, oh, see how they're talking about Jesus?
Yeah.
But the Nachmanides is not talking about, he's saying that this is not referring to who you guys are talking about.
Yeah. Before we go on, I need to use the boys' room. Is that okay?
Don't miss.
Thank you. I'm going to pause the recording.
Hit the mark.
So we're back.
All right. Okay, so 3 complete cycles. 3.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, so that's about 6 minutes, maybe a little bit more.
Sorry about that. That was 6 minutes?
Well, I mean, if each one is about 2 minutes 40, no.
I apologize. No,
it's a minute. It's a minute. My bad. I was looking at something else. All right. So I wanted to get through some of these sources because I actually wanted to say something about the idea that Christians have about Jesus and why that idea is powerful and why it's important and the role that it has in this great cosmic drama that we are.
And then maybe related to what we're talking about today with this whole communism thing.
I think so.
We can get into that.
I think so, but all the way at the end. Okay. We're not trying to say that Jesus created communism, folks. That's not. Don't worry. When you get there, you'll see what we're talking about. Okay. So basically, this third example of what people like to point to in the Talmud and say, "Oh, see, that's Jesus," right? Is when Onkelos, who we described many times already, he summoned the spirit of Yeshu. Okay. Not Jesus, folks. Okay. And he describes the punishment. He describes his punishment in the afterlife as boiling in excrement, which is, of course, an agodic thing. Nobody's literally boiling in excrement. Okay.
Well, it's funny you said that because we were talking about yesterday how, if you read the book Minchat Yehuda by Rabbi Yehuda Fataya, he actually claims to have gotten him out of that situation.
Again, a guy named Yeshu who was put into the situation, not Jesus, folks.
Yeah, but for what reason and why mention
do you think that Rabbi Fataya, you're reading the English translation, does Fataya say Jesus? Or he says Yeshu? Okay. It might actually help to learn more about these people who the Talmud is talking about. There's information about them.
So
get to know them as individuals, it'll be much harder to confuse them.
So listen, in the website, myjewishlearning.com, which is a, like legit website here.
I don't think so, by the way.
So listen to this. There you go. Here, listen to this. This guy's writing about Jewish exorcism, Rabbi Jeffrey Dennis. Exorcism is a ritual power performed in order to drive an evil spirit, whether demonic or ghostly, from a possessed person, location, or object. The Christian scholar, Origen, credits Jews with a special talent for exorcising demons. Against Celsus, Book 4, I don't know what this is. The first allusion to exorcism appears in the Bible in the youth narratives of David in Shmuel 1. But while the biblical David seemed to be able to effect the temporary expulsion of Shaul's evil spirit using music, the book of Tobit, I don't know what this is, contains the first explicit description of an informal exorcism. Josephus recounts incidents of possession and exorcism in his Antiquities of the Jews, 258 and 45-48. In his description, exorcism involved burning herbs and immersing the possessed person in water. And then it says, the New Testament also reports Yoshka to have performed numerous exorcism of demonic spirits in first century. Okay, so that's New Testament, so we don't really, whatever. But I was hoping to find something about.
By the way, whether or not the information
Ah,
you're reading is accurate, which it may very well be,
Yeah.
I don't think My Jewish Learning is a website which you can go to for a guaranteed
No, it's not guaranteed. No.
Orthodox Jewish view of. You understand what I'm saying? Like I think they incorporate others too.
Of course. I don't know. In the book, if you actually read in the book, that's the claim, at least. Obviously in English, but that's the claim that he got him out of this, floating in whatever.
Okay, so there's two more like circumstances that people that are in the Talmud that people really try to connect to Jesus, right? So actually, there's one more that's mentioned here. Let's see, the Talmud. Where's I think it's in Sanhedrin 67a, or possibly Sanhedrin 106a, and the volume is called Shabbat on 104b, where apparently there are references to some lady named Miriam, okay, who is a mother of somebody that they call Yeshu. By the way, folks, Miriam, not a very uncommon name.
No, of course.
Right, back then and now, okay, pretty common for a lady.
Yep.
Okay, so if a lady named whatever, okay, so and there's other names in the Torah that were used in ancient Israel in the Torah, which are more similar to Mary than Miriam.
Yeah.
Okay, like Moriah, like Mount Moriah. What's the pronunciation?
Moriah.
Moriah. That's much closer to Mary than, to my ears, than Miriam.
Yeah.
But whatever, that's just me. Okay. So where they're talking about her, that perhaps there was an accusation. Oh, this is used in the Disputation of Paris in 1240, saying that the Talmud was saying really mean things about Jesus' mother Mary. Okay. And so they're trying to use that to expel the Jews or to force conversion or whatever, that kind of thing. Okay. So, man, I thought I had more. Whatever. I think I'm going to find a source. Okay. Where, that has all of the references. All of them are spread out over the entire timeline with hundreds of years, a spectrum of hundreds of years. Okay. And everybody's named Yeshu. Okay, it's talking about a ton of different individuals, okay, who caused a lot of problems, usually, which included having, causing problems with the regional government, the Roman government, okay, which led to negative things, which led to many Jews dying on account of that. So those guys are called Yeshu, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, folks. So my point is this, just to kind of like boil it all down, okay. The Jesus that is being described by Christians is not to be found in the Talmud at all. Okay, people have to really do all sorts of jujitsu and acrobatics to kind of try to make that happen. They try to connect them and try to say this guy was Jesus and that guy was Jesus. None of it makes sense. Each one of them falls apart. Okay, now so what are we left with? Okay, so the earliest actual historical, anything that could be considered historical material about Jesus is from Tacitus and Pliny the Younger. Those are the first two essentially mentions, not even of Jesus, but of a group of some kind of religious sect, which is probably Christians, but it could also, I think in some cases, not even be, there's also other possibilities. Okay. So let's just say 104 years or 117 years after Jesus was described to have been living, right? When he, as they tell the story that he flipped over the money changers table, right? That was during the temple.
Yeah.
Okay, so these people lived over 100 years after that.
Yeah.
Okay, I think actually, when did Tacitus live again? What was it?
Tacitus.
I think you mentioned, was it Tacitus or are you talking about Pliny the Younger? I just want to get this straight.
Pliny the Younger, he lived after the temple. So Tacitus lived also 56 AD. Same story. I mean, like after 120.
Okay, so he probably wrote his writings after the temple was was destroyed. One second.
Yeah.
I got to get this right. Hold on.
Paul was destroyed in 70, I think, right?
Hold on. I'm gonna Google this. Tacitus.
Pliny was like a little
Tacitus Jesus. Let's see.
Pliny was a little kid.
What is Tacitus on Jesus? Let's see. The Roman historian and senator Tacitus referred to Jesus, his execution by Pontius Pilate, and the existence of early Christians. Okay, that is, I'm reading right now the Wikipedia. So whoever wrote this created that statement. Let's see what Tacitus actually said when we get to his reference. I'm looking for a quote here.
Yeah.
Okay, the passage and its context. Again, this is a translation from Latin. Okay, so here it goes. This is from the Annals passage, which has been subjected to much scholarly analysis, and I'm sure a lot of debate. Okay, follows a description of the 6-day great fire of Rome that burned much of Rome in July 60, on the year 64 CE. Okay, the key part of the passage reads as follows. This is, I have no idea, folks, if this is an accurate translation.
Mm-hmm.
Here it is. But all human efforts, all the lavish gifts of the emperor, and the propitiations, never heard that word before, and the propitiations of the gods, lowercase g, did not banish the sinister belief that the conflagration was the result of an order. Sorry, folks, conflagration. Okay. Consequently, to get rid of the report, Nero fastened the guilt and inflicted the most exquisite tortures on a class hated for their abominations, called Christians. Okay, so that's the English translation. Okay, so I think here, let me see anything that looks like Christian in the actual text. Okay, Nero, Rios et quasitimus ponus adficit, blah, 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 Christianos. Okay, that looks pretty close to Christians. Okay, I'll take it. All right. So anyway, so he imposed the most exquisite tortures on a class hated for their abominations called Christians by the populace.
Mm-hmm.
Christus, from who the name had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilate, and a most mischievous superstition, thus checked for the moment, again broke out, not only in Judea. The first source of the evil, but even in Rome, were all things hideous and shameful from every part of the world that find their center and become popular. He's saying that everything that comes out of Judea is hideous and awful and evil. That's essentially what he's trying to say in a very annoying, long-winded way.
Mm-hmm.
Accordingly, and obnoxious actually. Accordingly, an arrest was first made of all who pleaded guilty. Then, upon their information, an immense multitude was convicted, not so much of the crime of firing the city as of hatred against mankind. By the way, for the folks at home, a lot of these historians that we rely on, freaking liars anyway.
Yeah.
They're abominations called Christians by the populace. I hear my voice, and it's tough for me to hear my voice. I got to hear it the first time. We don't have to subject the folks at home for the second time. Okay. They don't need an echo of this voice. Okay. So basically,
echoes in eternity.
Okay. All right. So basically, he's talking about there was a group, apparently he calls them Christians, if this is correct. Okay. So when did he write this? That's what I'd really like to know. When did he write this? So let's see. Tacitus. Let me just see Tacitus alone for a minute. Okay, so he lived, it says here, between 56 AD and 120 AD. That's when he was born, or that was his lifespan?
Probably lifespan, no?
Right.
Probably lifespan.
So for the folks at home, by the way, this word that the Romans used as Christus, right, is obviously, it's a borrowed term, Latinized form of the Christus of Greek, which means savior.
Yeah.
Just a general term for savior. Okay, so what he could be describing here, folks, is that one of many Messiah type figures to come forward during that time to declare war against the Roman Empire and to fight them and to bring the kingdom of heaven. That was common language used by these type of figures, okay? To the point where they just, in my opinion, this is my opinion now, they just created this general word. Oh, here's another Messiah translation in Greek or in Roman. Oh, here's another Christus coming along, right? So they just kind of gave it this like blanket term. Here's another one of these Karens.
Yeah.
Here's another Karen. Look at this Karen. Okay. People did this for a long time, folks. It's not just our generation.
Correct.
Like my friends, like when I used to, for instance, if we were hanging out and I saw a pretty girl, this is in a previous incarnation, I'd be like, and I'd point to her and go, damn, like that, really obnoxious, right?
Yep.
And then, my friends would look at me and I'm like, her boyfriend's behind me, isn't he? They're like, yeah, like that. It would always be something like that, It didn't happen too often, but it happened often enough to where they said, oh, you just pulled a Frank.
Oh, God.
Okay. So
not only did they turn you into a mascot, they turned you into a.
This is actually a little bit before that. This is before the religious stuff. Okay. So, people did this kind of stuff all the time. So again, the way we use language, we can't use language the way we do now and assume that they used the language and meant the same things that we mean today.
Yeah. Correct.
Okay? Unless we have like progressive commentaries translating for us the meaning of words from previous generations, like Rashi.
Yeah.
Okay. Rashi took the text. He was the transmitter of the Torah tradition, and some of the words which had potential to be incorrectly defined or translated, he translated them into his current language, which nowadays we call Old French, but he called it, just French during his time. So you had, from generation to generation, you had people who were translating terms so that the following generation could understand what the previous generation meant. But if you don't have a completely unbroken line of that, you can't assume that you know what the hell they're talking about. Okay, so
somebody should write a commentary entitled "This does not mean what you think it means."
Because it doesn't. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you hear the word Christus, oh, Christian, see Jesus, no, okay, not necessarily. Okay, it just means a messianic leader who came, who rounded up a bunch of followers. That happened a lot, folks.
Yeah, if anything, Trump could be called.
Well, he never declared. Well, actually, right. Well,
I'm saying if somebody wanted to call him that by that name.
Well, Trump never declared the kingdom of heaven is coming and that he's the king of it, that he's the earthly representative of it. Okay.
No, he didn't.
And right. And by the way, folks, the whole thing about let's say that they based Jesus off one of these guys, any one of them that could have existed, right?
Yeah.
Possibly. Okay. Or it could have been what did you say? A compilation, a composite, and they smushed them together and they formed something. But they also added a bunch of stuff that's not Jewish.
Yeah.
Okay. They added the Roman religions that existed were essentially just translations of the earlier Greek religions that they had in common. Okay. Just that, like Zeus is Jupiter, right? And so on and so on and so forth. Okay. Yeah. Some of these gods with a lowercase g that they are describing in these religions, they had stories that are similar to what Christians learn about Jesus nowadays. Okay. Born of a virgin from Zeus or something like that. Okay. A woman had an encounter with a divine being. Then she became pregnant and gave birth to a Messiah character. Who was a god himself, considered a god himself. That theme repeats itself over and over and over again throughout recorded history. Okay, going back to Egypt with Horus and Osiris and Isis and Seth and that whole mishpucha, as they say. Okay.
Yeah.
And again, this is all related where does this story come from? Why does it persist? Why does it keep changing forms and changing names, but the characters are essentially the same? Because it's talking about the archetypes that exist within all human beings.
Yeah.
Okay. And also, but the differences in the way we all describe the archetypes, meaning different cultures have different twists on it. Okay. That's where we don't get along. That's where we don't agree with each other. Okay. So the Jews and the Torah perspective is the right one.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm saying that because I think it's right. And I think the other one is wrong. Okay. So, and I'm not making declarations because I don't know anybody in the world, whether they're a president or I don't know who has the ability to make a declaration and claim an absolute truth, and then everybody else has to go along with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So it shouldn't, your reaction to hearing me say that shouldn't be, oh, that's what you think. Yeah, I know. Obviously, everything I say is what I think.
Yeah.
Okay? And no one's forced to agree with me. But I think the Christians are wrong. And I think that the Jews, the Orthodox Jews, and the traditional Torah tradition about it is right. And I'm talking about how to interpret and understand the archetypes.
Yeah.
Okay. So they used the non-Jewish telling, the various telling, the way ancient cultures have been describing the behavior of the archetypes, which, by the way, mirror what's going on with the stars.
Mm-hmm.
The archetypes that we all have within our subconscious are expressed in the stars too. What a coincidence, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, they used the non-Jewish style of telling that story. Okay. And they blended it together with with this familiar type of like a mold. There was a mold of a type of character that existed that gave the Romans a bunch of problems politically.
Yeah.
In Israel. Okay. They had a new Messiah popping up every who knows when. Okay. Yeah. There was only one of them that was actually nearly successful, and we know him as Bar Kokhba.
Yeah.
Okay. He actually was the only legit one of those who actually had a real following of the traditional established rabbinical transmitters.
Yeah.
Okay, like Rabbi Akiva, namely, of course. Okay, but he wasn't successful. Okay, so that's essentially what I think is going on. Okay, but there's more.
Yeah.
This notion of how the non-Jewish world explained the archetypal characters of the mother and the father and the son and all these archetypal, the hero and the villain and the wizard and the wise man and all this kind of stuff, right? They look at it and they try to humanize the divine as much as possible.
Yeah.
That's why you got to make God into a man.
Yeah.
From their, this is again my opinion. Okay. What Jews do, which is essentially different than literally everybody else, okay, what makes us stand out is that we disconnect, we try to come to the reality that God is always beyond man, can never be defined. We know that God cannot be defined, encapsulated. There's no word or thought or image that can refer to God in any way whatsoever. Even the names in which we call him are essentially appellations.
Yeah.
And they're more for us, for our
us
use than to describe God as he is unto himself.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the problem that we have, Christians. Okay. You're saying that God came down. First of all, aside from the verses in the Tanakh, which you guys claim to accept as the word of God, which say that God is not a man and won't be a man.
Yeah.
Okay. But putting that aside, okay, that's the problem that we have. Okay, these ideas, the reason why we never accepted Christianity is because primarily because of that.
Yeah, because
Okay, so even if,
it's called anthropomorphism.
yes, so even if you if Christians would have like done something like, look, we're Jews just like you, we keep the commandments, right? And this Jesus guy, we think he's the Messiah. We're not saying he's God or anything.
Yeah,
But, we think this guy's the Messiah. And I would have been like, all right, I guess that's fair. You're allowed to think somebody's the Messiah.
And then maybe people wouldn't compare Lubavitch to Christianity.
I don't really give a shit about that,
But you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
it
see,
wouldn't be like this annoying thing of people like, oh, I'm not going to eat this hechsher. I'm not going to daven with him.
Dude, what a tennis ball this created synthesized idea of Christianity is, where they took this principle, this kind of composite principle of Jesus, thrown in with some pagan understandings of the archetype, and they start hitting it back and forth like a tennis game.
Yeah.
But even Jews started using that as a tennis thing with it, to accuse each other
within Orthodox Judaism.
It just wreaks havoc.
Yep.
Okay. So it became like one of those things, one of those balls in Harry Potter.
Listen, I always tell people, you know how I know Chabad will never become Chas v'Shalom Christianity is because they don't proselytize to non-Jews. If you want to go there, you know what I mean?
I think there's a lot of other reasons that are more well, because they keep the Torah and they understand whatever. Okay, let's just So you know what I'm saying? So basically,
Oops.
so right, so far we've discussed like why I think it's wrong and why a lot of other people think it's wrong. Okay, and then also there are people who believe, I can't remember what they're called, the myth. There's like a group of people who have a certain view about Christianity, about Jesus, that he never existed. It's the word mythology is somehow the mythologists, or I don't know. I don't know what they call them. Okay, but they believe that Jesus never existed, that he's a complete fabrication by this Roman family called the Flavians. Okay, that Titus was one of them, and
it's called Jesus mythicists, the mythicists.
Okay,
Christ myth theory.
Yeah. Okay. So they're saying that someone like this never existed, right? So, and then what I'm saying is that somebody who started this idea, or a group of people that started this idea, existed, which was used as part of a baseline to shaping a character, which ended up being the one that people see now as Jesus. Okay, so that's a little bit different than saying he never completely existed or anything of the sort. But it's not that different, by the way, because essentially even what I'm saying, and people who say what I'm saying, they are saying that the Jesus you're talking about never existed.
Yeah,
they are saying that. Now, that being said, we did mention the archetypes, right?
Yeah.
So in that sense, Jesus is a view of an archetype that we believe is viewed through a broken lens.
An image of an archetype, yeah.
Okay, so the archetype, so the Jews call, here's what we call the archetypes. Yeah. Okay, so you have there's God arranged the sphirot, right, which are these emanations that he uses, tools, you could say, that he uses to interact and actually to even create the world continuously. He didn't just create it and leave it alone. He continuously uses these things to keep the world in creation, and the world is sustained by a flow. It's a fluid, constant thing that exists, and this is just a general term, divine energy that God sent to the world, and he uses these as channels. Okay, but they're not literal channels, and you just have to kind of understand that these are tools that God uses. Okay, and we're not saying that they're God at all. Okay, so and they're grouped. There's 10 of them, but these 10 are actually grouped into 4 groupings. Okay.
Mhm.
So you have, well, I mean, it depends how you look at it. It could be like almost 5 groupings if you look at it from the very, very top, from Keter. Okay. But essentially we're looking at Abba, Ima, Zer Anpin, and Nukva de Zer Anpin. So Abba means father, and that relates to the sphere of wisdom. Okay, and Bina is Ima. So Ima is mother, and Bina means understanding. So as we know that wisdom and understanding, they are likened to, they are metaphoricized. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Okay, they're used as an allegory. Okay, this mother and father idea. Okay,
Metaphorized. Yeah.
is that I thought I made that up. Okay.
Metaphor. Yeah, you could do it metaphorized. Yeah.
Metaphorized.
Express
Okay.
something metaphorically. Metaphorized. Yeah.
There you go. So basically, you have the father and the mother. Okay, and so these sphero, these tools are related that way because of their behavior, right? And by the way, we're supposed to observe this behavior.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be able to have visions of the sphirot, like the prophets did. Folks, when you're reading the Bible and you're reading the words of the prophets, this is what they're looking at. This is what was communicating with them, the information that we received and that we have documented, which we call the Tanakh. Okay, so this is how they got it. So they would receive the visions through this channel. So essentially, these, another way of looking at it as a metaphor, these sphirot, or these groupings of sphirot, are costumes that God puts on as he's demonstrating to us the instruction manual of our life and our society. He's shown by observing the behavior of the sphirot and how God makes them interact with each other. Okay, we're supposed to copy that and understand what our role is in relation to the sphirot. Like you see, again, the sphere of wisdom and the sphere of understanding. That's father and mother, and they're always together in unity. Okay, so that's the example of parents, right? If you have to be parents, if you're in a marriage and you have to be parents, you look at sphirot and how they behave, and you're supposed to emulate that, okay, to follow God's instruction. Okay, then there's the child sphera grouping. Okay, it's actually made of 6 different sphirot, and it's called Ze'er Anpin, which is metaphoricized as the son of this parental unit. Okay, so if we observe how Ze'er Anpin interacts with his quote unquote parents, right? Remember, this is just an instruction manual for us. Okay, so then we're supposed to emulate that. Okay, and I think that what Christians call Jesus and what earlier peoples called Dionysus and Mithra and Horus and Osiris, and maybe I get was it Dionysus or Diogenes? I'm getting things mixed up. No, Diogenes was a philosopher. I just wanted to make sure I got that right. Okay.
Dionysus.
Okay. So, and there's also different versions of it. Okay. So, what essentially what I'm arguing is that Christianity sees Ze'er Anpin, this son archetype. Okay. This kind of like instruction manual character, you could say, right? Like when you open up an instruction manual, you see people working with the parts that you're talking about here. You put it together like this. Sometimes it's a cartoon character, sometimes it's like a photograph of a generic model, right? That's like showing you how to put something together, whatever. Okay. So Ze'er Anpin, I think they're looking at Ze'er Anpin through a cracked prism.
Yeah.
A cracked lens. Okay. So again, my opinion. Okay. So and then the sphere after that is Nukva, which is the daughter but also the consort of Ze'er Anpin. Yeah. Okay. Since we only have essentially 4 characters here, right? They're multifaceted. Okay. Yeah. But again, we have to understand that when God is showing us this, he's not saying that in one context you have the son, child of the parents, and then Nukva is his marriage consort, right? His wife.
Yeah.
In another context, which is not related, she plays a different role. She plays his sister.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they're telling that it's the same situation. You understand? They're using these archetypes in different situations as a language to show you what you're supposed to be doing. And the Torah even tells us, don't get confused. Don't think that you can marry your sister, because we have Leviticus and other places to tell us what God really feels about doing something like that. Okay, so there's really no way of confusing that if you study the Torah like you're supposed to, like everybody's supposed to. Okay, yeah. Jews and non-Jews. Okay, so now it goes even a little deeper. The Christian view on Zer Anpin, okay, and the fact that it exists, okay, and you have to consider who are the Christians today, generally speaking, right? Where did it come from, and why do they hold the view that they do? Why did this particular view of Zer Anpin become attached to them, even though it was very similar to the ones that came before, but slightly different? Okay, it's kind of like it's Goyish, right? To borrow a vernacular, but it's also Jewish, yeah, because it's essentially the Goyish view, yeah, clothed in Jewish garments, yeah, right? With because they changed it from they used Jewish words and Jewish, yeah, terms from that time, right, to describe the ideas which were pagan, that came, yep, from outside. Yep. Okay, so who does that remind us of? It reminds us of where most of the Christians, or the people who embrace Christianity, where they themselves came from, yeah, from Eisav. Yeah. This cracked view, distorted view of Zer Anpin, which now they call Jesus, right, mm-hmm, is essentially how Eisav saw Zer Anpin. Yeah. Eisav wasn't just, this like, you gotta, for the folks at home, if you want to understand the greatness and the power and the brilliance and who Eisav really was. Yeah, he could have been. You got to listen to Rabbi Kessin. Yeah, he could have been him and Yaakov together. That's what it was supposed to be. Okay. He screwed up. Eisav himself was the primary failed Messiah. Yeah. He was Gashmias and Ruchnias, Okay. His job, by the way, we're not shitting on Eisav, by the way. Yeah. Because the more you learn about that situation, the more you realize like God, man, why'd you he got a roll? Why? So Chris, if you're listening, right? I'm not gonna say your last name, but by the way, I hope you continue to listen after this. All right. And this comes from no malice at all. I promise you. Please use your intuition to know that, and Hadass as well, or anybody else. Okay. Unless you're Mel Gibson, then I want you to think that I mean malice because it causes you internal pain, and I'd like that. But for everybody else who I love, I'm not. You realize I'm not. If you don't agree with this, fine. But you realize I'm not trying to hurt you. Yeah. Okay. All right. But Mel Gibson, I'm trying to hurt you. Okay. So basically, no. So what I'm saying is that for Ariel Aloro Cohen. Cohen Aloro, yeah. Right. Who by the way, he's not. I don't know. Some people call him a rabbi, but he's not an ordained rabbi. No, he's not. I'm not saying he's not extremely knowledgeable. I'm just saying that technically speaking, he never got that ordination, that certificate, which doesn't matter to me that much, really. Okay. But if we're gonna go there, yeah, we're gonna go there. I mean, you might as well we're trying to minimize confusion to the best of our ability. Okay. So he wants to focus on redeeming Jesus. right? And bringing him back into the fold.
I was gonna say I don't know about redeeming him, but yeah, at least bringing him back into
The fold, and saying that he was slandered and
using that as a reconciliation tool between
right,
Christians.
right. So he is almost right. He should be trying to do that with Eisav.
Yeah.
That should be his real target.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Chris, if you hear this, okay, everything that Aloro Cohen is saying about Jesus, he is so close. If he just got a little bit more on the mark, everything that he's saying that needs to be done does need to be done, but it's to Eisav.
Yeah. Or with Eisav directly, not using Yoshka as a tool to.
Yeah, no, just understand who you mean. You don't mean, you mean who
it does not mean what you think it means.
Yeah, the person that you're feeling, the person that you feel this connection to is Eisav. Now I know, let me explain for people whose faces are boiling right now in anger.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk a little bit about who Eisav was, just so you understand?
We could.
Eisav was twice as great as Jacob.
Mm-hmm. Was.
So these are currently existing entities, mm-hmm. Jacob and Eisav. Mm-hmm. They still with us.
Yeah.
Okay. Jacob is the Jews. Eisav is essentially Christian Europe. Mm-hmm. Okay. They're twin brothers. Okay. Eisav was supposed to be, he was technically the big brother, because even though they were twins, he was born first. So he got technically the right of the firstborn. Okay. But he was also given twice the strength and power as Jacob was. Yeah. Okay. Or spiritual potential. Okay. And he was given a lot of strength, but for a good reason, because he had to defeat the Satan. Yeah. All of us in the Jewish tradition, we learn that all of us have an evil inclination, which we call the Yetzer Hara, which means evil inclination. And for most of us, for little guys like me, and a lot of other Jews, we have like a little shard of the Satan. We have like a little fractal, like a little mini me of him that's implanted in us that we have to fight and defeat.
The non-Jewish world calls it the reptilian brain.
Well, if you want to use cartoon language, like you have the little devil on the shoulder and the little angel, like that kind of thing, right? Yeah. So all of us are given like a little tiny one, that's really annoying, and we have a hard enough time dealing with him. Like I know I do. Yes. Okay. Porn. Okay. So and other stuff. Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't keep burying myself. But anyway, whatever. Truth fanatics, all right? Fuck off. Yeah. So basically, so you got, don't judge me, you bastards. Actually, judge me. It's okay. I'm okay with that. So basically, we all have a little like Eisav in one of those like Halloween devil costumes, with the kind of like weird material, right? But Eisav, the actual Eisav, he had the Satan as his evil inclination. Yeah. No one ever had that.
That's crazy.
Except for like Adam or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So he got a pretty raw deal.
Yep. Messed up.
So technically speaking, he had the strength to defeat him.
Yeah.
But listen, I don't understand fully the complexity of this situation. And I don't understand why it necessarily worked out the way that it does. Because when you get into the wiring of this, of the Torah and these stories and understanding them, you'll see that it's, you're going into like astronomical physics or something. I don't know what else to compare it to, like the deepest possible calculus you can imagine. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But more complex.
Yep.
Okay. So seriously, folks, there's a lot of books, not a lot of people have opened them, but so
they exist.
I saw them. I literally saw them. And I saw some of the people that actually opened them. Mm-hmm. Okay. So he got a raw deal. He was supposed to be, how we keep talking on the show, or we did a while ago, we talked about that there's Mashiach, but there's two jobs. There's two messianic jobs that the Jewish that the Jewish tradition brings down. Okay, you have a guy who's supposed to clean up the mess that Adam made, right, after he ate from the tree, and then the guy who's supposed to do the original job that Adam was brought to the world to do. So the guy who cleans up the mess has come, that position was later called Mashiach, the son of Joseph. Okay, it came to be called that. The reason why is because the biblical Joseph was the guy who came closest to actually completing that job. You know, it's sort of like, since Karen is the biggest, most annoying bitch that anybody's ever seen, now all people who fit that description are now called Karens, because she was like the archetype that she set the mold, right? She set the the standard. Now Joseph, he was the biblical Joseph was the first one who really came close, or came closest to actually doing the job of what the cleanup job that Adam was supposed to do after he messed up with the tree. So that job title came to be called Messiah, the son of Joseph. It was supposed to be called Messiah, the son of Eisav. Or actually, it should have been called Messiah, the son of Yitzhak, because Eisav was Yitzhak's son. Okay, it would have been named in reference to Eisav had he succeeded. Eisav was supposed to have 6 of the 12 tribes of Israel. He was supposed to marry Leah and have 6 of the 12 tribes, and Jacob was supposed to marry Rachel and have the other 6. Okay, but because it didn't work out for him, and again, this is not a judgment, okay, but it didn't work out for him for whatever reason that goes way beyond my understanding. Okay, so Jacob had to take upon himself that task, that for the time being, until Joseph came into the world. For the folks at home who know the biblical story a little bit, it was only after Joseph was born that Jacob felt that it was even possible to now actually leave Laban's, they call him Laban, right? Laban? I think, how do Christians call him Laban?
Laban, yeah.
So it was that was the first time when Joseph was born, is when Jacob began to entertain the thought of leaving Laban and going back home, because now he had somebody who had the power and the spiritual blessing to counter the strength of Eisav. Remember, he was fleeing Eisav, right? One of the reasons he went to Laban was to get away from his brother Eisav. Okay, but now that Joseph came, now Joseph had the same kind of energy and power. He had the power to instead to counter whatever Eisav's power was that he began to use incorrectly. And just to understand, or actually, I'm going to offer my opinion right now as to how to understand great spiritual power and why sometimes people who have it essentially fall like Eisav did.
Or Shabtai Tzvi.
Possibly. I don't know that much about Shabtai Tzvi. But essentially, imagine, and again, this is my opinion. I didn't read this anywhere. Take it with a grain of salt, okay? So imagine you have a fire hose, okay? And the stream that passes through the hose, right, can be compared to the spiritual power that someone receives, okay? The pressure from that stream. So if the water is like at a medium pressure, it's manageable. You can handle it. But if the speed and the power and the pressure for which the water passes through that hose, it can get so powerful that the hose becomes impossible to control. Like it takes on a life of itself. Like it's about to snap. Like the hose itself is going to snap. So the guy who has to control that is in a bad situation. Okay, even though God gave Eisav the power technically to do that, somehow it didn't work out, and I don't understand why. Okay, so that's so Eisav, and again, the people who became Christians in Europe are his descendants. Okay, and so something about what went wrong with Eisav, right, is somehow connected to this view on Jesus, which is through a broken prism.
Yeah.
Okay, that's about as. These are my personal thoughts.
I can tell you, since I'm a kid, I never understood, the very idea of why. First of all, why Hashem needs to be a physical man, embodied in a physical man. That's number one. Another thing I never understood was, why does this person need to die for our averas? This guy died for your sins, all that kind of stuff.
That I could explain why I think actually.
Okay, I'm saying, let me, and then another thing I didn't really understand is, there's just like things I didn't understand, like why. And I thought, since I'm a kid, I found it very ironic that these people are worshiping a Jewish guy, yet they hate Jews for killing him, yet he's a Jew. So yeah, and even then, the story obviously was misconstrued as having, us having killed him versus the Romans having killed whoever it was. Let's just say, before we got to this discussion of that he was a composite, let's just say if he was like a man, it was just a lot of weird. I don't know. Since I'm a kid, I'm just like, none of this is BS. This is really, really monumental BS. And I remember I had like rabbis tell me, well, that's because you have a Jewish neshama, and obviously when you think Jewishly about it, I'm like, doesn't it need to think Jewish?
Yeah, there goes the rhetoric,
Dude, listen to me. I met people in the club world, and it's funny, Rav Kook even wrote about this. He said, the closer we get to the Mashiach, the more that the non-Jewish world itself is going to see how this is a whole pile of bullshit. The problem is that they take it to the extreme to where they say, okay, Yoshka's BS, New Testament is BS, but of course, because New Testament and the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, were put in together into one thing called the Bible, the Christian Bible. What do these schmucks do? These idiots that I knew, these leftists that I knew in the club scene who grew up in the Christian families, they threw the whole thing out. The Torah, this, that, everything, including and also the very idea of Hashem. Right? That's kind of the pitfall of the whole thing. But Rav Kook wrote about, if you read his book Orot, he said, like towards the end of closer you get to Mashiach, the more the non-Jewish world is going to see I'm just paraphrasing, they're going to see that this whole thing is kind of treif, that it's tuma, and they're going to see that it's, the impurity is going to fall off. How's it going to fall off? They're going to reject it. They're going to reject it wholesale. And in its place is actually, he writes about the whole thing of like, in its place is going to be this kind of like mass atheism, but atheism, all atheism is coming to do ultimately is to, kind of, I don't want to say Mekadosh Hashem, the idea of Hashem, but it's basically coming to bring Hashem back via a new conversation. Not to be confused with the New Testament, via a revitalization and via a clarification by the Jews. At least the people who hold Torah, who like real Torah. And it's interesting, you see, dude, all these people are listening to our podcast, like non-Jews. That's what that is. That's essentially what I just described. That's exactly what that is. If you take away.
I agree, and I think obsessively, or I did before, as to why this phenomenon is occurring. Like, what's the pathway?
Can I just read you, before you get into it? I literally want to read to you quotes that Rav Kook said why atheism. This is from Yeshiva Har Etzion in Gush Etzion. See, it says, Rav Kook recognizes heresy as a tool which can help believers purify and refine their faith. The challenge of heresy shatters inaccurate or undesirable models of God, and this can enable the religious community to progress to a fuller, more truthful understanding. So I wrote, there's another quote, give me a second. Here, I wrote this, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. I quoted Rav Kook. Here we go. From Rav Kook regarding atheism. Since the thoughts concerning God, this is from, I think, Orot, in their basic elements are unclear, God being as conceived by the multitude and even by individuals who should be their leaders, is that of a ruthless power from which there is no escape, and to whom one must necessarily be subservient. No grandeur of God is then manifest in the soul, but only the lowliness of wild imaginings that conjure up a form of some deceptive, vague, angry deity that is disassociated from reality. It confuses everyone who believes in it, depresses his spirit, blunts his feelings, inhibits the assertion of its sensibilities, and uproots the divine, with a capital D, glory in his soul. Atheism arises as a pained outcry to liberate man from this narrow and alien pit, to raise him from the darkness, to uproot the dross that separates man from the truly divine light. And in the ruins wrought by atheism will the higher knowledge
but not on purpose. But not on purpose.
Yeah, I'm saying
that's important to understand.
No, but that's he's saying it has a purpose, but it's not obviously not doing
I wanted to make sure the folks at home don't think that Rav Kook actually thinks that that the leaders of atheism are like consciously trying to do that. No, they're not.
But listen, he says this is the most important. I want to read you the last sentence. In the ruins wrought by atheism, this is actually the quote most quoted, will the higher knowledge of God erect her temple. Basically, the Beit HaMikdash is going to be built on the ruins of atheists, sentiments.
Ideas, right.
Yeah.
We got to get into Sam Harris at some point, but not now, not now.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to say something quick. We're not even going to get to Sam Harris during this conversation, maybe the next one, unless Greg wants to. Yeah. But Sam Harris, his main thing was, if you want to boil down what Sam Harris says, we don't need God to be moral people. You can be an atheist, you could be moral. Now, today, or yesterday, Sam Harris said, it's a good thing that they stole the election from Trump because, so basically lying is justified because he's a bad guy, he thinks. And through lying and deceit and through completely shitting on the will of the country of millions and millions of people, then they did something that's good. So
it's like the killing Hitler as a baby thing. If you had a chance to go back in time to kill Hitler as a baby, would you do it? That kind of stuff. In their perception. In his perception.
I don't know if I wouldn't compare the two. I could see a distinction.
No, you know what I mean? Like in his head, because Trump is to that level, then you can do whatever the hell you want.
I mean, I don't know if he thinks that Trump is to that level. Okay. But
bad enough.
But the point is that, look, even if you go and you kill Hitler, right?
Yeah.
When he's a baby.
Another Hitler pops up.
Right? That's one thing. Yeah. But you're not essentially what you would have to do? You'd have to, if you wanted to match this situation with what they did with Trump, you'd have to go to Germany, right? Right about when Hitler is about to come into power, right? And you have to completely crap on the will of the German people at that time, which what the Nazis did actually. Yeah. I mean, they cheated their way into power.
Well, the whole thing was the Reichstag fire was basically, this is what January 6th was. They let something happen. Half the thing was like people being let in, people who were hired to go in there by the Democrats themselves, and all these kind of things. And you see the video, the guy comes up to the security, why aren't you stopping this? Why? And this was a Trump guy asking the security guy, why are you letting this happen? Why aren't you stopping people from going in? And the security guy just standing there, like literally like a statue.
Actually, the security guys I saw videos where they were letting them in. They're like,
no, there's some of them were letting them in, and then there's one of the videos, a video of just as that's happening, there's another security guy just standing there like a statue, and one of the Trump guys who didn't want, who wanted to stop this whole thing, out of the 99% of people who were there peacefully, was millions of people, hundreds of thousands of people, saying, hello, can you please stop these guys? They don't represent us.
Yeah.
And nothing's happening, and nobody cares to see this video. Nobody cares to see it. Nobody, even if they saw it, there's no validation. There's just screw you, and you guys are a bunch of insurrectionists. It's a Reichstag fire, man.
So that would be more, I think, like a more closer comparison to what So essentially, Sam Harris with his atheistic morals, it always boils down to the same thing. He's smarter than you. Yeah. Therefore, he decides what is moral and what's not, folks. Exactly. Doesn't matter how many of you voted for him.
Yeah.
That's atheist morals right there. So Sam Harris, whatever.
It's like Greece taken to the next level. We decide because we are the enlightened, whatever, patricians, and you are the plebeians, and that's it. You know nothing. We're the ones that have the libraries and the
Rome, right? You meant Rome?
Rome, Greece. I mean, it's
No, those specific terms. I'm sure they had their
the terms
they had their correspondence in Greek, but that was
yeah.
in terms of Roman, I think.
Interchange these things. I mean, because listen, ultimately, you realize that parts of Greece became like these people were related.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, just different names and different nomenclature. So
Greek, by the way, as a language was like I think as commonly spoken even in the Roman Empire as Latin.
of course, it's like saying you're talking about English and Spanish. Like come to America, call a customer service, half the thing. Para español. So if you had like phones and back there, be like, para Grecio, or like for Greek.
I couldn't think of a single Greek word. I could only think of Malaka.
Yeah, exactly.
Malaka.
Dude, man, I was reading something about recently. Somebody, I don't remember what in the context of what this was, but apparently there are.
You want to pull the conversation in a different direction? We could go there.
No, there are.
We're getting far.
No, I wanted to say real quick that there's apparently people today that still speak a dialect of ancient Greek. I was reading in Airbnb magazine. There's like, in Italy, in a part of Calabria, one of the cities today, there's people who speak like a dialect of ancient Greek or something like that. It's interesting.
It's different than what they speak today.
Yeah. I just found that, I was like, wow, what the hell? Anyway.
If you find that article, send it to me. I'm actually kind of curious.
Yeah.
Because anyway, so the things that you said that Rav Kook foresaw, like, he kind of prophesied, right? That certain things would be happening around the time of Mashiach, things that phenomenon that are occurring in the non-Jewish world. Okay, so I had a lot of thoughts as to why that might be happening. Okay, so, and it's related to what we're talking about with Eisav and Christianity. Okay, so when you have, like, traditionally, right, let's say for most of Christian history, let's call it Christian history, most of the Christians existed were either in the Middle East, Europe, and North Africa, maybe to some extent. Okay, that's where Christians were to be found. Okay, mostly Europe. Okay, I would say after medieval times, let's say after the year 700 or 800, you'd probably find most Christians, if I'm not mistaken, probably in Europe. Okay, I know that the Middle East was the center of it for a long, long time. I know that.
Well, okay. The Levant.
The Levant, right? Like so, but eventually, most of the Christians they went to the Mediterranean area of Europe and then ventured further and further north and west and east too. Okay. Okay, so now the actual population of Europe, even going back before that, right, like at least 2,000 or 2,500 years, okay, Europe going back that time was not very densely populated because, as I understood or I heard, it had to do with the climate. Like the climate there was cold and it started to become more habitable around 2,700, around that time, between 3,000 and 2,500 years ago, it started becoming comfortable for life. And, you'd be able to grow something there and not freeze to death, basically. It became temperate. Okay. Before that, it was kind of like Siberia. Okay. This is the way it was explained to me. If anybody knows different, please provide some information. Yeah. Greg, you with me?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So right around the time when, when we read in Tanakh that the tribes of Israel were evicted by Sanhedrin, right, the Assyrian emperor. Right around that time, we start seeing these migrations of populations from the Middle Eastern area from the further northeast, okay, to moving towards Western Europe. Okay, there's all sorts of names. There's the Galatians and the Scythians and so many names. It's very difficult. Some people call them the Germanic tribes, the Celtic tribes, all this kind of stuff. Okay?
Goths, Visigoths, Schmizigoths.
Yeah, those are the Germanic tribes, the Vandals and all
not to be confused with a 14-year-old girl in high school.
Well, actually, the Germanic tribes,
black.
That was much more recent. That was like closer to 1,000 years ago, maybe 1,200, like that.
Yeah.
Okay. What I'm talking about is the people from the time of the Bible, when the 10 northern tribes of Israel were supposed to have been evicted from Israel.
Yeah.
Okay. So they essentially traveled, and I know it's not popular to say this, but they traveled north and west. Okay, mostly.
Yeah.
Some of them went east, and some of them went south to some of them to places like Africa or maybe Southeast Asia. But the majority, and this is according to our traditional sources like Rashi.
Yeah.
For Christians or for people who don't know Rashi, just type in Rashi Torah, and then there's a Wikipedia on it.
Yeah.
Read away, you'll see he's okay. So basically, remember we talked about that in the context, like I found this this thing about Canaan.
Yes.
Right? Remember we had a whole episode of like the curse of Ham, right? Did it really have anything to do with black people? And so we found out that it doesn't look like there's much to support that idea. It's probably more just racist stuff that occurred, like probably these ideas probably came somewhere from the 1600s or something like that. Okay, mostly from Christians who, not Christians, but people from the Christian world who wanted to justify abducting Africans, kidnapping them, and then using them as slaves, until they died, and then bred them and stuff like that. Okay, so that was, but from the actual Jewish tradition and the text, do we have anything to support that? Not that I saw. I couldn't find anything.
Yeah.
Okay. But later, I saw that it seems that Canaan, right, from some of the stuff that the commentary on Ovadia, right, which is one of the prophets in Tanakh, right? So Rashi commentary and Ibn Ezra, right, two of the classic commentaries that we have, they actually said that Canaan, like the people of Canaan, right, and his descendants, they traveled to Europe. They didn't even go to Africa. Okay, but that's a side thing that we'll talk about some other time. And it also says that the tribes of Israel, they also went to the same places that Canaan went. So it mentions that Canaan settled between the land of Israel going west up to Zarephath. That's the language. Zarephath is France. Okay, so France is like the central geographic location of Western. It's a coastal piece of land to one of the most western points of Europe. Okay, so that area is where people from the Middle East in general settled. Okay, so we see that there are mass migrations. Okay, from the Middle East to that area of not just Hebrew tribes, but also even Canaanite tribes who were apparently white. Okay, and the descendants of Eisav. Okay, so you have this. So that's what Europe is, even before Jews showed up there. Okay, in mass as they had, in more recent history, like between 1,500 and 1,000 years. Okay, I mean there were very old Jewish communities in Spain going back way further than that, and and that kind of stuff. But generally, okay, so when you look at Europe, you see essentially, I don't know to what ratio. I don't know who represents the majority. Let's just, for the sake of argument, let's just say it's evenly split up. Like a third of them are Canaanites, a third of them are Eisav, and a third are the tribes of descendants of the tribes of Israel. Okay, and my intuition tells me that the majority, that there's probably not that many Canaanite, maybe kind of like Central Europe, a couple of like small places, maybe Germany, something like that,
Yeah.
But overall, it's probably majority Eisav and the lost tribes. Okay, so here's why. And by the way, I don't think it's an accident that the Jews ended up settling primarily the main population centers for most of the last 2,000 years. We're also in these areas, right? It's like they migrated there later and set up shop around these relatives of theirs. Okay, so now Christianity, as we said earlier, has the vessels, the garments, and has Jewish language. It's the old pagan story, but told with Jewish language.
Yeah.
Okay, so it seemed from when it got to Western Europe, right? The people there were still practicing pagan idolatry, right? And it would seem that the religions that they had were the ones that were carried from the Middle East, all the way as far west as possible that you can imagine in Europe. Folks, in England and in Wales and in Ireland, Scotland too, the Celts worshipped Bel.
Yeah.
The tribes of Israel were thrown out of Israel for worshiping Baal.
Yeah.
Huge difference, right?
Yep.
Okay. When you study the religions, you'll also see that there's a lot of overlap.
Yep.
The concepts. And you'll also see there's also a lot of overlap with Christianity too. So the tribes of Israel who were kicked out of Israel and Eisav and also the Canaanites, right? They all were familiar with these Baal-like cults. And Baal is the Middle Eastern like version of the Egyptian religion. Yeah. Which they had different names. Like I'm not sure who Baal corresponds to, but I think it corresponds to Horus. Okay, there's similarity, there's overlap. These are overlapping concepts. Remember, archetypes. These are archetypes that people are describing in different ways.
I mean, owner Lord Baal. Let's see. I mean, there's like Beelzebub, but that's more like
no, that's
no, I'm just looking at the Wikipedia thing about Baal. Here.
Baal Zevuv means the Lord of the Flies.
Yeah. Hadad, that's in let's see.
There's a bunch of different Baal cults.
Yeah.
But there was something there was like overlapping themes among them all.
Set, Middle Kingdom, Seth. Middle Kingdom of Egypt, due to being a foreign god in Egypt, since Set was the god of the foreigners.
In some cases, it was Seth. And that was Baal Tzafon. There's different Baals.
Meaning the guy.
There's Baal Peor, Baal Tzafon, a bunch of other ones. But then there's also the general Baal.
So it says Egyptian equivalent is Set. The Greek equivalent was Zeus. The Mesopotamian was Hadad. The Hurrian was Teshub.
I've read other papers, academic papers, which compare more to Horus in that respect. Okay.
Here.
But I could be referring to maybe only one of the cults.
Yeah, I'm looking. It says Seth. Yeah, it says is Baal an Egyptian god? Baal, the principal Canaanite deity and fierce war god associated with the Egyptian god Set. That's what this says. I don't know.
Hang on. I want to see if I can find that paper. Baal, and this is like from Cambridge or something. One second.
I mean, there's listen. It could be Horus's. There's Horus's wife, but that's.
So hold on. The ancient religion of Baal. And
the eye of Horus relates to Baal.
Okay, so. Let's put it this way: it's a fluid. The term Baal generally. By the way, folks,
the
term Baal
just means master.
A Hebrew word for master.
Yeah, or overlord, or lord of something.
But the most basic definition is just like the master.
Yeah.
Okay. So very, very vague term.
Like Baal Tshuva or Baal.
Right. So if you were to go to a person's home in the ancient Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
And even currently today in Israel,
Mhm.
The guy who, the homeowner, right? The guy
Balabas.
who owns the house. He's called the Baal Habayit, meaning the master of the house.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Or the
this
term
term,
Yiddishkeit, balabusta, like the
right? That's the Yiddish, right?
female version.
Balabusta sounds like ball buster.
Exactly. Well, yeah.
I was just thinking that today.
Yeah.
But so basically, yeah. So basically, hold on a second. Hold on. I just saw something. One second. Those speaking Semitic languages knew him as El, but the Sumerians of Lower Mesopotamia had revered him as An, the sky god of heaven. Akkadians and Assyrians also lived in Mesopotamia, referred to him as Anu. Early Egyptians called him Horus,
Mhm.
but later dynasties named him Ptah, Atom, or Ra. Atom, very interesting.
Mhm.
Sounds like Adam, which Adam, as from the Torah's perspective, is essentially synonymous
Mhm.
with the partsuf of Zer Anpin,
Mhm.
this arrangement of Sphirot. Okay,
Yeah.
so folks, it's really worth the study. Just learn about the partsufim, learn about the archetypes from Carl Jung, and then through that lens, start learning about the details and the practices and the beliefs of the religions from the Middle East and Egypt.
Mhm.
Okay. And then once you have a familiarity with these themes, you'll see these themes, these patterns repeating over and over again. Okay. Even in the later religions that traveled from the Middle East to Europe, North, West, and even East to some extent. Okay.
Mhm.
Like Russia, like in the Russias and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Okay. So what am I getting at? Okay. What I'm trying to say is that the Europeans,
What's your point?
here's my point. The Europeans, they essentially practiced a religion that was related to or developed from the religion that they had in the Middle East, which is why God kicked them out of there.
Well, listen, man. Look at Easter, the eggs and the bunny, like crap. Look at Xmas. They had to paganize everything with the tree. These are all pagan symbols.
Yeah.
Even when they're celebrating supposedly a Jewish guy or the resurrection thereof, either his birthday or his resurrection, they gotta bring in their trees and their eggs.
It's very deep, man.
And their bunnies and all this kind of crap.
There's all of this is layers and layers of meaning.
And then when you call it out, they're like, but it's fun for the kids. Or like Halloween. Come on, why you gotta crap on Halloween? It's fun for the kids.
It really is, though.
It is fun for the kids, but it's dark and
I literally just like, that's why I understand Christians.
Yeah.
I'm not even shitting on them. Like first of all, they're good people that truly feel goodness in their heart and love, and they want to do good.
Most of them.
The ones I'm talking about, the ones I know.
Yeah.
Okay. And they are enamored with the story of Jesus. It's really a beautiful character that people is so charming and so heartwarming that you just want to connect. And like I was telling you before, like there were certain religions in the Middle East, like the religion of Tammuz.
Yeah.
Like we have a month in the Jewish calendar, which we call Tammuz. It reminds us of something that we have to shield ourselves against.
Yeah.
Okay. Tammuz was a pagan deity. Okay. That became popular during one of the times in the Tanakh, right, in Hebrew scripture, where foreign influence came and the Hebrew tribes began to worship foreign gods. Okay. It's not a secret. Anybody who read the Hebrew scripture knows that there were periods like this. One of them was Tammuz. And one of the ways in which, and this religion was almost exclusively, like it was almost like a female cult, except that it wasn't worshiping a female deity. It was just very popular with the ladies, because the rites and the rituals in relation to Tammuz, some of them were like theater productions. Mm-hmm. Okay, they were like things that were acted out, like a play. Yeah. Right, and some of them involved some kind of like the Rambam talks about this, Maimonides. There's some kind of idol, right? Which its eyes, like they would heat up the idol. It was mainly some kind of metal or stone, but the eyes or some part of the eyes are inside. They somehow inserted lead. So when they would heat up the statue at a certain point, while they were acting out some kind of dramatic thing, some kind of romantic love thing, right?
Yeah.
Between him and some woman or him and some female deity, whatever.
Yeah.
He would start the idol would start crying. It would appear to start crying.
Yeah.
The lead would melt, and then it would look like tears coming out. They did it somehow. Okay. This is very popular because it touched upon these emotional tropes, which a lot of ladies felt a connection to. I mean, so you get attached to a story, right? I got attached to Halloween, not the story or the history or anything, but just like having an awesome time dressing up.
When
like throwing eggs at each other, getting candy, getting drunk.
When I got detached from Halloween, I'll tell you something. When Halloween was fun and when it wasn't fun, it was fun in the late 80s, early 90s, when actually, ironically, when I used to walk around like Avenue H and Coney Island Avenue, and Pakistani kids used to throw like hard.
Yeah, frozen eggs.
No, not frozen eggs. They threw at us once. They threw giant potatoes, giant carrots, celery at us, any adama you can think.
Get it together, Packies. It's eggs.
Yes. So they threw that at us. That was actually, I mean, whatever. That was like, we threw stuff at them. They threw stuff at us. When it became whack, basically in the early 2000s, early 2000s, when girls started dressing up like
dressed like a whore day. Yeah,
prostitutes.
Dude. To me, we're obsessed with the 80s, right? 80s Americana.
Yeah.
Like Halloween just by itself, like the holiday, that mindset and things associated with it, including the movies, the music, and whatever. Science fiction. Half of that is like Halloween, not half, like a third. Yeah. It's a huge chunk of the 80s.
All those pirates and dead skeletons, all that stuff.
E.T. There's huge Halloween theme there.
Yeah.
Okay. Halloween was like it's so much fun, man. And as far as I'm concerned, Halloween disappeared like after the 80s. Like I didn't, you know what I mean? Like I don't even I didn't recognize it anymore.
It was a fun thing, and then it really became a thing where you actually, I mean, I don't know about you, dude. I feel like the Tuma walking past somebody's house when they have like somebody puts like a mock grave and like all kinds of death.
Yeah, they got really grim. That didn't really start.
Yeah,
like people didn't really do that kind of crap until like the late 90s, early 2000s.
Dude, it's crazy. No, but when you come to like suburbia, like, dude, it's crazy, man. Elaborate. And I'm like, these people are getting this from somewhere. I don't know where. It's like it's turned into like a mamish, like a real.
Yeah, they're getting nuts. I mean,
said there, it's like a ritual that they're having.
Right. Halloween used to be. I mean, in the 80s, they still had a dark edge to it, but it was kind of like it was a little more innocent.
It was more innocent. There was more Halloween. There was more shtick. There was a lot of shtick. The whole thing was about shtick. The whole thing was about like throwing eggs at somebody.
Trick or treat, little kind of like Halloween, like tricks and little pranks. You know what I mean? Like, but the whole thing with whatever, man. Yeah. But it was fun. All right, pumpkins. You put it's kind of charming. There's like a pumpkin, you carve it out. Yeah. Man, I can tell you something. One of the things, I don't know if you can relate to this, but do you remember those Genovese commercials? Like it was a pharmacy, Genovese.
Yes.
They advertised something called the pumpkin cutter.
Oh my God.
It's
not used by the Genovese crime family. Okay.
No. There's just not the Genovese crime family.
I'm kidding.
The pharmacy.
I'm kidding. I know, but I thought I was when they did those commercials when I knew about the pharmacy, I was like, is this owned by John Gotti?
I don't think so. It's probably.
Oh, here you go. Cutting a pumpkin. There you go. They have this on YouTube.
So they have but the thing was called the pumpkin cutter. It was kind of like it was a dull serrated knife, like a little knife, right? Which wasn't sharp at all, and it had like all the edges were kind of rounded, right? So you couldn't really hurt yourself. I mean, of course you could, but I mean, In the 80s, basically, the attitude was like, look, if you're gonna hurt yourself with this, you're basically a retard anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
how much do we gotta help you?
Yeah. There was no like safeguards, whatever.
Right. Like I don't really seatbelts. Anyway, so we're sounding like George Carlin now. But anyway, so
take a chance. Take a freaking chance, will you?
so the handle to this thing was like orange plastic, right? Like almost like neon, but it had that pumpkin color, and it was shaped like. I cannot tell you how badly I wanted that pumpkin cutter. You know why? Because you saw the person in the commercial. They were carving all these elaborate like things and making the pumpkin look awesome and like scary and like epic and stuff like that. I was like, if I get the pumpkin cutter, I'm gonna be able to do that.
Yeah.
I never ended up getting it, but I wanted it. I cannot tell you.
Can I play a commercial? They have like a quick, on YouTube. They have them. Genovese drugstores from the back in the 80s. Here.
Sure.
This is Valentine's Day 80s ad for Genovese.
Valentine gifts, all of them are at Genovese. But that's not all. This circular offers over 100 Valentine gifts and other products you use every day. All on sale. Genovese film, electric razors, watches, cologne.
It's so weird.
Cosmetics, vitamins, health and beauty aids, all of them at spectacular savings. So come to Genovese, save big dollars. Genovese, a real drugstore.
No, so now this is the Christmas.
Holiday greetings to you and yours from Genovese Drugstores.
Okay.
Merry Christmas and a New Year filled.
Oh, that's it. Here. Oh, this is the Christmas commercial.
Working so hard, I'm changing your Genovese drugstore into your Genovese Christmas store with your choice of holiday specials, all at the low Genovese prices you love. Like these Clairol chlorine products, shampoo 6.8 ounce, $3.99, conditioner 4.2 ounce, $2.79. And check this Genovese Christmas circular for other great gift ideas, all at super savings.
So weird.
Genovese.
By the way, this guy in the commercial, his name was William B. Williams. He was a radio DJ. Nothing to do with, he wasn't like the owner or anything like that. They just got this like radio guy to do this.
Yeah, man. The only other time I ever felt like that, when you're a little kid, like there's this like Kellogg's commercial, like Kellogg's, some kind of cereal, Kellogg's, some kind of, there was being marketed.
20 bunches of oats or something like that.
It was just regular Kellogg's. It was being marketed as something healthy. So you see this like lady, this beautiful lady in a one-piece like suit, and she eats some kind of Kellogg's, and then she eats like a little baby tomato or like a cherry or something like that, and then she does a perfect swan dive into the pool. And I'm like, damn, that was a good dive. I'm like, if I eat Kellogg's and eat that tomato, I'm also going to be able to do that, right?
Yes.
I made my parents laugh. I think I was like 5 when I said that or something like that.
And then you learn that you should not swim after eating.
Yeah, there's all these things you learn. It didn't go exactly how they're telling me it's going to go.
Yes.
All right. I have a friend, dude, who learned that exact idea really, really hard.
Oh, no.
Okay. And it was much less innocent. Okay. There is a, and the idea being that things don't always go the way they seem to on television. I have a friend, okay, and this is actually somebody that we've never actually spoken about. It's not anybody in Brooklyn, or this is like from a whole different like crew, okay. So if you recall, in the early 90s, there was a channel in cable which they had called the Spice Channel.
Yes.
So he was 10 or 9 or 10 or something, or 11, okay, and he took an interest in the ladies around that time, okay, as many of us did, like around that time, give or take a year.
Yeah.
Okay, and he happened to be watching that, when he tuned in for the first time.
Yeah. So
there was a scene where there was a naked lady, obviously, right, and she was showering in some kind of locker room setting.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't remember, I never saw it.
It was probably Shannon Tweed.
No, this is porn.
Oh, okay, fine. Oh, Shannon Tweed was on Showtime. But anyway, go on.
Shannon Tweed, I think I don't know. I know that she was married to.
She was on Cinemax. She was on
married to Kiss.
Yeah, the guy.
But
still is.
She's okay. So, but I don't remember what she's famous for. I think she was in movies, right?
She was like a Cinemax. That was Cinemax. That was
beautiful lady. I remember her from movies.
Yeah.
This was this was spice, which is porn, essentially. I mean, I don't remember to what extent, but it was essentially porn. Okay. So there's a young naked lady, she's taking a shower in some locker room setting. And I'm being told about this. I never actually saw this particular one. I saw many others, not this particular one.
Yeah.
So he sees this movie, and then some guy who knows that she's in there, right? He essentially just kind of like goes in there, right? And then she looks at him, because the script says that she looks at him, and then she's filled with lust, and they embrace, and then the fantasies run wild. Okay, so my friend.
Oh no. What?
Oh my dude, this is just, I mean,
Okay.
anyway, so he sees that, and he's like, oh, okay, that's the way it works.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I think it was camp or
Oh,
something
no.
like that. It was either
no.
day camp or something like that. And so I don't remember the context, but it was some kind of public shower area where there's like a pool or I don't know what I can't remember. School, maybe some kind of school thing.
Oh Jesus.
Okay, so there's a girl. Actually, no, he didn't. There wasn't even a particular girl that he liked. He just thought that he'd go in there, find a beautiful girl, and that the moment she sees him, she would want to have, you know what?
Oh no.
Okay, so he just went in there, right? And there was like a whole group of. He was expecting one girl, and there was an entire, and they all literally. And by the way, remember, this is a little kid we're talking about.
And they all ran away.
He may have been almost 11 or 11 or something like that. Okay. And these were like maybe teenage girls or something like that.
Or this is like camp?
Either camp or some kind of school
state?
thing. I don't like, I'll give a possibility. Like I remember I used to play soccer, right? You remember Victor Konieski? Whatever. I used to play soccer. And sometimes they rented out like different high schools in Brooklyn. So after practice, there would be shower areas.
Yeah.
But there would also sometimes the actual school people, the high school kids would also be in the high school grounds in a different area practicing their own sport. Like we would be let's say in the basketball area that was free. So we use that for soccer. And then the girls from the softball team, were also there that day.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they have their own locker room and shower. So something like that. Okay. It had to be something of that nature. I don't recall the exact context, but it was definitely something like that.
Yeah.
So he goes into the locker room and they freak out on him. You understand? Remember, like when you're talking about like girls who are 15 or 16 or something like that, right? High school girls. Yeah. These are like, you're supposed to be some level of an adult already, like your consciousness needs to change. When you see a 10-year-old kid, 11-year-old kid,
they didn't.
You should be able to recognize the kid as a kid, not these group of girls.
No.
They shrieked. They started throwing soap at him. He ran out of there, tears rolling out of his face. It was, and then they called the police. The police came. They called his grandmother and his parents.
Sounds like something that happened in my camp. I don't know if this Dafka happened. There's something.
I'm sure something like this happens to a lot of stupid kids. Okay, and there's not a shred of difference between my level of intelligence and this guy's. This guy is probably smarter than me. Okay, this could have easily happened to me. I'm just lucky that it didn't. Okay, lucky. All right. So basically, like this is the slightest. So he's a kid. He just he wanted to have this experience, and he didn't have great guidance. That's all. Okay. I remember he's like 11 or 10.
Yeah.
Yo, man, I think like they slapped. First of all, before he even got out of there, he definitely received some kind of physical beating. I don't know if it was from the soap that they threw at him, or from shampoo bottles, or hairbrushes, or they actually hit him a bunch of times. I don't know. Okay.
Dude, our friend Brian Walsingham said this is a bad coming of age movie in this story.
This is not a great coming of age story. Okay, this is a very painful coming.
A bad one. Like a really
right. But he says the worst thing was the humiliation of his that in front of his grandmother.
Yeah.
And his aunt.
Yeah.
But his father was he doesn't know for sure, but his father obviously was called there too. Yeah. But his father seemed to be wouldn't even look at him. His father couldn't even look at. Whenever the thing was going on, his father was looking, and when he was a kid, he interpreted that as he made his father cry.
Yeah.
I have a different theory, which actually brought him a lot of joy. I was like, did you see your father's face at any point during when the police came? He goes, yeah, for like a second here. Did you see any tears? No. Did you see any like redness?
That
No.
means approval.
That means he was laughing his ass off.
Yes.
That's what it means.
Inside.
Okay. All right. God bless the kid had someone on his, on
his side. Yeah.
He's probably even like proud. He goes, at least he's not gay. Like I wasn't sure about this kid.
He's probably inside like, oh, for sure.
He's like, all right.
Russian, he was probably saying to himself, у меня были сомнения до этого.
And also he's probably in praise. He goes, the balls it takes to do something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a nightmare for the kid.
Храбрая скотина. Brave little bastard.
And I could see I could see when he was telling the story, I could see him reliving it,
Yeah.
I saw the pain.
So
and I imagine him as a little kid.
Russian,
I was like,
he's a Russian speaker.
This is a Russian speaker.
Yeah.
But it's not, like all my group of friends that you're familiar with. It's none of them. This is came from
no, I wasn't.
This is like the friends of the friends of a family of this kid that I knew from whatever, not gonna even say where.
Whatever it is.
Okay. Lived around my neighborhood.
Yeah.
So, oh man, so the point of all that, folks, was that things don't always work out as the way they show you on the TV with the moving pictures.
Yeah. It's
okay. So, I mean, should we get back to the original point quickly? Because remember I was saying I was trying to do the summary.
We should now relate this to what we were talking about with our friend Rahel about.
I was about to.
Why people are have gotten enamored with shmamunism.
Without any idea, it doesn't matter what it is. Like I was enamored.
Well, the thing is, you see how these people are like the wokes. Because they came from let's say mostly, if they came from Christian families, if they don't have God or anything of the sort, they're just going to turn this thing into a religion, whatever the hell this crap is. And they have to the point where it's so machmir. If you don't adhere to their doctrines, then you're a heretic and you need to be burned. I mean, canceled, burned, whatever it is.
Ideas, viewpoints that take on a lot of people incorporate, kind of like it becomes a religion, basically. Kind of. So, unless your particular philosophy is specifically to make sure that doesn't happen. Yeah.
Like Sam Harris, technically that kind of is his philosophy.
I was thinking more along the lines of the founding fathers.
Founding fathers, yeah, but by them it's like deism, I guess.
Sam Harris is a high priest of a religion, which is called atheism.
It is, but I will say that at least he's a real atheist because people who, again, there's people who say or you'll meet like Russia. Oh, speaking of Russian-speaking Jews, the people who think everything that you and I do is chipucha and chaloimus will go to gadalki. They're going to go to like psychics and all and extrasense and all this kind of stuff. So all they're doing is just that they're basically, it's like it's not replacement theology. They're just replacing mitzvot with superstition. So actually, they're not atheists. An atheist is an atheist. An atheist is a person who doesn't believe in anything that can be deemed superstitious, whether it's God/Torah or going to a whatever, a psychic or anything of that sort. Like I had a friend who didn't believe in any of it. He thought everything is mumbo jumbo. I'm like, oh yeah, so you're a real atheist. Except for one time, he told me that he had a professor in Rutgers who went to Haiti and spoke about Santeria. Yeah. And then my friend goes to me, man, I don't believe in any of this mumbo shit, but this stuff that he was talking about, man, that stuff is real.
He's like, I don't believe in anything, but except I believe in that.
No, but he's like the way he described it and the way that I read about it and the way that, and I met some of these people, whatever it is, and Haitians in America, and then I saw some stuff on my own, stuff happening. He's like, that stuff is real. I'm like, so you don't believe in anything, but you believe that at least is real. Their stuff. I mean, which actually it is. I mean, on the dark side. It was just funny. I'm like, dude, this guy's like a bona fide atheist. Nothing. Doesn't believe anything past the material world. I remember one time I was talking to him, And I remember this was like, I had my best month ever trading stocks, my best month ever. And a few of the days of that month, I had like situations where like I almost lost a lot and then made it all back by some like miracle. So I remember being in the car with him and I was like, I told him I had my best month. He's like, oh man, that's awesome. Let's go celebrate, whatever. And I was like, yeah, man, thank God. You know, God really helped me. He's like, what are you talking about, man? You did this. You did this. You sat there. He's like, God didn't sit. No, some invisible man didn't sit with you in a chair and clickety clack buttons and figure out where to buy and where to sell. You did it. And I'm like, I got into this like 30-minute discussion with him in the car. I was like, dude, first of all, if you only saw some of the moments where it was up until the last minute of the day, it was not going to be like that. You know, there was a big doubt as to whether or not I did it or I was going to do it or anybody was going to do anything. And if you look at the situation that I was in, whatever it was, where I was about to lose a lot and then I ended up not losing anything or losing a little bit, it can only be some divine, you know, something from somewhere else. Definitely not any kind of master trading strategy, I'll tell you that much. And then for 30 minutes, he's like, no, you know, I'm trying to give cover to Hashem, like say, you know, without Hashem, I can't make this money, you know?
Yeah, you can't make your finger, you can't make the mouse, you can't. Where did this material come from? For
Yeah,
you
or the idea to even trade that particular stock at that particular time and whatever it is.
Or how about the idea of stocks? How about existence?
Yeah, but I'm talking about just, you know,
I mean, that's where it ends up. That's where the conversation should end up. Like,
sure. No, well, I think it did end up eventually there, but I'm saying just on a basic level, just, you know, the idea of my skills, where that even comes from. You know, again, like, you know, the guy was like, you did it. Biyado, you know, like with your own hand. And I was just like, no, man. And this is before I was from. I was like 26, 27 years old. But I understood, like, you know, on a basic level that it's not me. It ain't me. And then I proceeded to spend all the money traveling around the world and doing whatever I wanted with women. And yeah.
which reminds me, I wanted to read about I wanted to read about Jack Parsons.
There went that.
No, I'm saying like
Yeah.
because he's also, you know,
Yeah.
somebody anyway, but let me just I think I could finish up my point in about 55 seconds.
Yeah.
You could even put on a timer.
Yeah.
So again, Christians, European population, okay, the one that we talked about, the migrations from the Middle East, okay. The reason why the European population embraced Christianity, right, a little bit later, like halfway through history, like maybe earlier, 700, 600, 800s, came to like Northern and Western Europe, is because I think something seemed familiar to them, because these are Eisav, descendants of Eisav, descendants of the 10 Hebrew tribes, right? And also a significant portion of Canaanites. Okay, that's essentially what makes up the main body of the European population. Okay, and North Africa to some extent. Okay, so when they heard the story of Jesus, and they heard the names and the location, the place, and a lot of these like tribes, right? There are like many different types of tribes, many clans, all this kind of stuff. A lot of them, when you study, they had a tradition that they were from that region, and that they still practice some of the things that they practiced back then. That these, like, they had like rituals, kind of like Marranos, right? Who they didn't know why they do it. They just know that it was a tradition that they carried on, but you know, from a previous god, that the god that they worship now defeated that god, but they still out of respect, or I don't know what they concocted, right? But they had like a connection to their Hebrew roots for those from the 10 tribes, and Eisav too, to a less extent, okay? Because Eisav, he started his own stream. Okay, so what happened? So because they did have their origins in the Middle East, in the Levant, in Israel, okay? Christianity, with its Jewish garments, seemed familiar to them. Even a lot of the concepts, like charity, like, gentleness, being kind, being, like just the good stuff that we all love, like all that stuff is in the Torah too. So because that's part of Christianity, thank God. Okay.
Yeah.
So they felt connected to it too. Okay.
Sometimes they have it as too much.
I'm sorry?
Sometimes they go overboard with Hesed. That's where you get,
whatever it is, but at least it was there, And again, we're not talking about a situation where things are balanced. We're just talking about how ideas
concepts,
felt familiar and they connect to it.
Yeah.
Okay. And also, the way that there's a lot of since they are descendants of Eisav, right?
Yeah.
So many of them are descendants of Eisav,
Yeah.
and even the Hebrew tribes that the lost tribes, that they forgot their identity they were absorbed into Eisav.
Yeah.
Okay, so essentially they became in Esav's camp. Okay, and they adopted his view of the world that he essentially originated. Okay, so Jesus, this concept, the way that they see him, right, as well, we'd have to look at it directly, and that's a very, very, that has to be a separate episode.
Yeah.
But the way Jesus looks to Christians is something very similar to the way Eisav saw himself, and the way that he saw it was his view of Zeranpin.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and we have to get it in order to understand why that is. Obviously that's a whole separate episode. So for the folks at home, if anybody wants to hear that, let us know. But I just wanted to kind of make that connection. Okay. So Christianity mostly was adopted by people who are descendants of Eisav, or closely related to him, who adopted or were absorbed into his fold. Okay, like the Hebrew tribes, the 10 Hebrew tribes. Okay, and so they have this perspective on Zeranpin that was essentially crafted by Eisav, and it looks like Eisav himself, actually.
Yeah.
Now, for the folks at home, that's not necessarily an insult, but I do think it's wrong, definitely wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
It's important to make that distinction, because the way that there's a childish view of Eisav. If you go to let's say to an Orthodox Jewish home, you go to a yeshiva, right? So when you hear the word Eisav, right, when it's when kids talk about it, like, oh, he's like a scary monster or whatever. That's how he's portrayed, and for good reason. But it's not reflective. Like, it's what I'm saying, not for good reason.
Yeah.
It's understandable.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily match the full reality. Okay, it doesn't focus on. That's only one sliver of who he is.
Yeah.
When he went bad and the bad stuff that he did, but before that, who he is, the power he was given, what he was supposed to do, and all that kind of stuff, and what he's still gonna do, folks. Still.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a current event. Eisav, the drama of Yaakov and Eisav, Jacob and Eisav, his brother, has been unfolding and has not completed yet.
Yeah.
Okay, Eisav will be redeemed. Okay, and here's how he's going to be redeemed. And again, this is just my view, which I extrapolated a lot from the way the Yair Davidi was describing the lost tribe situation. Okay, so some aspect of Eisav is redeemable. In Jewish, in Jewish philosophical language, or not philosophical, but the language of hashkafa, right? And a good source for that would be Rabbi Kessin, if you wanted to, not a source, but he explains it well. So Eisav is split into three conceptual ideas, into three parts. Eisav the liar, and that's expressed by the fact that he would deceive his father. He was pretending to be all religious. Like, he'd ask his father questions that only the most pious person would ask. Like, should I give a tithe from this salt and stuff? That's the classic example. Okay. So it's like, super goody two shoes. That's how he would portray himself. So that's the liar. And then you have Eisav the arrogant. Okay, that's where he thought that he should assert himself in the world, similar to the way Cain thought. This is a very Cainian idea, okay? That God sent us to this world, okay? And he gave us full reshus. How would you say that? In Hebrew, reshut, or Ashkenazi pronunciation, reshus. Free reign.
Yeah.
To shape this world in exactly the way.
Authority or domain. Or...
Right. Okay. We have the mandate, and, God gave us the space, and it's just not even, it's none of his business what we do here. We gotta dominate it, conquer it, and shape it, and got to do whatever we need to do, and morals be damned. And it's obviously much more complicated than that. I'm oversimplifying it. Okay, so that's essentially like these two different streams of thought that are essentially happening side by side. So Eisav, with that kind of mentality, right, essentially making man into God. Like, man is in charge here. Like, Eisav is essentially saying, as did Cain, as did Ham, all of these people, great people, by the way. I know we treat them as like cartoon villains now, but remember, folks, Cain, right, Adam's son, God spoke to him directly. He didn't even speak to Abel, his brother, directly. So what was it about Cain that merited him to have just, one-on-one conversations with God as if they're old friends? Obviously, he was great and something went wrong. Okay? Similar Ham, Noah's son. Not a simple guy. Each son of Noah was tremendous. They all had three completely different plans for engineering the world. Okay? And all of them were very complex, and all of them were based on a high level of spiritual calculus. Okay? Nobody was simple. Nobody was just pure evil or pure this or pure that. Okay? So Eisav, in the same, following suit, he's like the greatest example of that, the most powerful of them all. Okay? And so essentially the fact that he said that this world is our world, and essentially we are essentially the acting God of this world. Okay, because God is so hidden, it must be, there's more to it. This is a whole thing in itself. Okay, can't talk about it now. All right, so these are two competing views of the world, and this view of God, of man being in charge here, and man, reaching his ideal his way, right? That explains why Christians are so, to me at least, why they're so obsessed with the idea of God specifically coming to the world and becoming flesh. Right? To me, that's what it means to me. Okay. So what's going to happen? How is this? Because this is all going back to what you mentioned about Rav Kook's comments. Saying that the Jews, right, they went to Europe, and wherever these migrations occurred earlier from the Middle East with the descendants of the lost tribes, descendants of Eisav, and then even the Canaanites, right? The Jews went to those places too, okay? To do the tikkun, to rectify those places, okay? So what were they rectifying? What were they trying to do? They were trying to raise the sparks, which in effect is going to cause the lost tribe, because when you do the rectification, it brings that the effect that'll trigger Mashiach. Part of Mashiach is to reabsorb the 10 lost tribes. That was only possible because of the work that the Jews did in those areas. Okay, and again, the good work that the Jews did. I'm not talking about the bad stuff. There's plenty of that too, unfortunately. Okay? So the good work that was done, which took a long time because it was mixed with bad stuff, okay, that is going to trigger the coming of the Mashiach. And Mashiach is almost synonymous with the ingathering of the 10 lost tribes. Now, at this point, the 10 lost tribes have already mixed with Eisav. And as they are extracted as Mashiach extracts, or the work of the Jews. Mashiach equals the work of the Jews.
Yeah.
As the work of the Jews extracts the lost tribes back into the fold, the lost tribes in turn extract that part of Eisav that they connected to. And that's how Eisav gets back into the family. It's like this chain, like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
back and forth. Okay.
Sure.
Now, the three parts of Eisav, I didn't finish explaining that. So again, I said there's Eisav the liar. I explained what that means. Then you have Eisav the arrogant, who feels that he's God on earth, like Nimrod. Okay, similar idea. Okay, that functionally speaking, essentially, that man is God, or the main man, whoever is the dictator in charge, is God. Okay, a human being in the flesh. Okay?
Yeah.
That's arrogance. Okay, communism, by the way, says that.
Yeah.
Okay, they come to a similar conclusion. Okay, so let's use Marxism. From now on, I'm not going to say communism or socialism, because some wise guy socialist is going to be like, oh, you don't know the difference between communism.
It never existed. It never existed.
No, just saying, no, because one guy tried to make fun of me one time years ago, saying that, oh, you're not describing communism, you're describing socialism, and this kind of socialism and that kind of socialism.
Yeah.
I'm going to use the word Marxist just to kind of, people understand what that is too.
When people get into the different hashkafa, just like we do.
Yeah, right. The nooks and the crannies, the nuances, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then the third part of Eisav, right, which is, this is, by the way, if you can take these concepts and kind of overlay them over a human body, like picture Eisav, like a guy. So you have like Eisav the liar is 1/3 of him. Let's say that's the feet to the knees, and then the knees to the neck of the torso. That's Eisav the arrogant, and then there's Eisav the head.
Yeah.
So the head is considered the part of Eisav that can be salvaged. It can be redeemed.
Currently in Hebron.
It can be elevated.
Yeah.
And the head of Eisav is called Eisav the pleasure seeker.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the idea of pleasure is not in and of itself evil. Pleasure is related to this idea in Kabbalistic parlance, which is called klipat noga. Okay, it's a shell, a husk. Okay, so generally speaking, just as a crash course, you have to remove all the husks from the world, but some of the husks are unremovable. Like, you got to let God take care of that. Only there's 4 categories of husks. Only one of them can we actually have anything to do with and try to fix. Okay, that's klipat noga. That's one way of describing the parts that we can do something about. So pleasure is something that can be elevated to God. You could find a way to use pleasure to serve God. Okay, you can serve. God said you have to have a holiday meal, a Shabbos meal. So if you make that meal pleasurable and use that to observe, you use the pleasure to observe God's commandment, what he wants you to do, then that is an example of elevating pleasure to serve God. So this part of Eisav, which is metaphorically related to the head of Eisav, right? And for those who know the biblical story, not the biblical story, but in our tradition, his head gets knocked off, but that's a separate thing, okay? His head, in the Midrashic telling of this event, the son of Dan, Husham, the son of Dan, he's deaf. He's deaf.
Yeah.
Husham ben Dan, right? He's deaf, and he sees, this is the circumstance. They're trying to bury Jacob. Jacob passed away. They're taking him to the ancestral burial site to be buried with his forefathers. And then Eisav and his whole crew try to prevent that from happening. So everybody, so that you got all these negotiations going on, right? Because Eisav is a slick talker, right? He's a smooth operator, right? Yeah. He knows how to get you tied up in rhetoric.
Yeah.
Okay. But Husham is deaf. He doesn't understand what's the holdup. All he understands, he's just like fuming mad. He understands that his grandfather needs to be buried, and these assholes are not letting this happen. So he is a simple thought process, perhaps. he takes his weapon and he goes to Eisav and he knocks his head off. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the way it's actually explained is that he couldn't do it facing Eisav. He didn't like go up to him right in front of Eisav and knock his head off. He went behind him. Now, the reason for that is because Eisav was Jacob's twin brother. And he looked exactly like Jacob. So you can't, it's like, you can't, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's like, it's the image of the one you love most.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, obviously with some minor differences, but they were twins.
Yeah.
Okay, so his head, right, in this midrashic telling, it got knocked off and it rolled into the gravesite of where his father is buried.
Yeah.
Yitzhak, Isaac. So the head of Jacob is buried together with Isaac, which is a symbolic. It's more than symbolic, but part of the meaning is a symbolic way of saying that the head of Eisav can and will be salvaged. And that's the pleasure-seeking part of Eisav. And Rabbi Kessin, I believe, correctly connects the pleasurable part, the pleasure-seeking part of Eisav with the United States.
Yeah.
The United States itself and the people who live in it are the Tov Shebe Eisav, the good part of Eisav.
Yeah.
Now, again, these are general concepts. Does that mean everybody here is the part of the, no. So, and also, does that mean that everybody in Europe is the bad part of Eisav? No, but you'll find some good individuals sprinkled around, but mostly, for the most part, yes, Europe is the arrogant Eisav and the lying Eisav.
Yeah, I mean, we could tell how they relate to Israel with regards to Yudav Shomron, Judea and Samaria.
That's right.
All this organizations funding PA, whatever it is.
And the part of Russia, or the part of the Slavic world, or let's say Eastern Europe, the Eastern bloc of Europe, that absorbed communism or Marxism, okay, whether or not some people think they did it right or not, okay, that represents man asserting himself on planet Earth, right? Yeah. Moving away from God. Man should be in charge. Man will decide his way. Man is God.
Yeah.
There is no God, only man. Okay, that's a big part of Marxism.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously that's Eisav the arrogant. Who's Eisav the liar? Western Europe.
Yeah.
Why? Because they present a very sophisticated and enlightened face.
Yeah.
A very kind face, a very, very liberal, progressive.
Or as we say, politeness, which is what got us into this mess to begin with.
Okay, but they are essentially the root of all global geopolitical terror, war, and death in the world.
Yeah.
Even more than Russia, much more than Russia.
Africa, Middle East.
Okay.
Yeah.
That Eisav the liar has been raping the world more than anybody else beyond imagination.
Yeah.
Okay. But they put this face forward, and to me, there's a lot of things that can kind of represent this idea, but none more than when they abolished in the late 1800s, they abolished slavery from their European home countries, right?
Yeah.
But they continued it in the colonies.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons, they pretended to say that, look how enlightened we are. We're not going to tolerate slavery in our midst. But what they really didn't want, they didn't want African slaves living with them in that area.
Yep.
They didn't want Africans around. They didn't even
they didn't ban slavery. They banned immigration.
Right. They banned immigration. Okay. They didn't want to see black people walking around and mixing with their, with their daughters and their sons. Okay. Like what happens in the colonies.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a lot of other examples too, folks. Okay. For instance, the Germans, that's one of the best examples of Eisav the liar.
Yeah.
The hypocrite.
Mm-hmm.
The classic example, you have the camps, the death camps, World War II, where people are being, I'm not going to say it over and over again. Okay. But right next to where that's happening, next to the crematoriums, right, and people starving to death and being shot and tortured, You have ballrooms with orchestras and with people dressed fully in their, with the full, the whole shebang, the whole suit, tuxedos, everything, the whole shebang, right? Women with white gloves, tiaras, the most beautiful kind of like events, just like just like it was before the war. They took it with them. The height of European sophistication. Okay, that right there, that side by side is Eisav the liar. Okay, so that those concepts, that kind of mindset, those people who could do stuff like that, that's not salvageable. Okay, so anyway, I just wanted to kind of like tie that in. Obviously, each one of these things has a lot of details, but this is how I see. This is how I explain the phenomenon of Christianity and the role that it plays in the cosmic relationship that's still unfolding between the twin brothers, Jacob and Eisav. And that's where Ariel Aloro Cohen should be focusing his efforts.
Yeah.
You have to bring back Eisav, okay, who is basically who you are describing as Jesus. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. It feels good. Now you wanted to connect it to Marxism.
Yeah, I mean, if it is not going to take too long because I have to run in like 20 minutes.
It's not, because but the only thing that I said was that both ideas, well, we already mentioned that part of it is that both ideas is about man asserting himself on this domain.
There's also a lot of emotion involved.
And the second thing is that it's a very, very charming and emotional vision.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful vision. Both really are beautiful visions. It really is.
Yeah.
Okay. It's easy to see how someone could get attached to this. Like, I don't want to folks, I wish I had a better word than saying like soap opera.
Yeah.
Or
melodrama.
Or no, you know what? It's not that. Like, because that makes it sound like, I'm not trying to say it's campy or corny. It's something more epic than that. Something like what is it called? A tragedy? Not a tragedy. There's like a term for like an epic movie that's really, really, very complex and sad. It's like an epic. How about an epic? We could say an epic.
A saga.
A saga. Something like that. There you go. Okay. It has it's very, very powerful.
Yeah.
And it just, people connect to it on an emotional level. Okay. Which by the way, Zer Anpin just by himself, without his attachment to Abba and Ima, is it just pure emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
That by itself explains emotional Christianity.
Yeah.
And the connection that people have. It's purely emotional.
And
it doesn't have the intellectual faculties connected to
emotional wokeism and of course the people that did this for the past 2 years played on people's emotions. They scared the crap out of everybody. And
it's such a strong, it's so strong that it's almost like it's almost impossible to undo the connection to it. Because people will literally do anything, even if their rational mind starts to kick in. These dueling qualities, these characteristics, these inner spherot will do battle against each other.
Yeah.
Okay. And the emotional side is, in a sense, more powerful. Okay. And its job is to submit to the intellect.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I love is when the people that talk about, look at how these Trump supporters, they worship Trump like this and this and this. I want to tell these same people that say that.
I don't worship Trump.
No. But when the people that say that, tell them, do you remember yourself in 2008 during Obama's inauguration? Look in the freaking mirror, bro. Like, I want to tell them this. Look at what you would. They show images of these people at the inauguration all over America. It was like religious fervor. They turned this guy. They gave him a freaking Nobel Piss Prize, I call it.
That's exactly what. That's exactly what my least favorite comedian Nick DiPaolo said.
He said
he's like, people looked at him as the freaking Messiah, As like, you know what I mean? He goes, you know what? But you know what I also did? Because when I saw him get elected, right? I ran over to the TV, I pointed at it, and I said, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus Christ.
Exactly. Dude, these people were like, oh, the first black, I can't believe we have a black president. He's not even black. He's not even black American, let's put it that way.
John Amos for president.
What?
John Amos for president.
I don't know. Eddie Murphy for president. I don't know, whatever.
No,
Like,
hell no. Eddie's all enlightened and
Chris,
zen.
Chris Tucker.
Hell no.
Let me swear to uphold the Constitution.
Don't say this, man.
And you know this, man.
You know this, man.
Chris Rock for president. I love black people.
Why not Thomas Sowell or something like that?
He's too old already. That's unfortunate.
Why? Why is he too old?
Why is Thomas Sowell too old?
He still has his wits about him. He's one of the smartest men, and probably would be the most truly conservative president ever.
He's 92 years old. He will be able to maximum probably have one term.
Black folks, you could have had Thomas Sowell instead of, you know who.
Yeah. You know who I really like? This guy. I mean, he was kind of strong back when Obama was president, but he kind of like faded out. Alan West. I really liked him. You know Alan West?
Alan West, sure. But he's a little too rhino.
He's not rhino at all.
Networked.
He's not right, but he's not rhino.
I supported him.
I
fought hard online. You know, I fought his trolls. Like I would spend like half my day fighting his trolls when he was
Florida.
trying to get reelected.
He's from Atlanta, but he was representing Boca. He was running in Boca, in Florida, and he lost to some Jewish guy, old Jewish guy or something, or some Jewish guy. I forget.
Yo, can I take a 30 seconds?
I mean, is there anything else we want? Because
I wanted to read something about somebody that we mentioned from time to time called Jack Parsons.
Is it long? Because I literally mamish like.
It's a New York Post article.
Oh, because I mamish have to go. Oh, you want to take 30 seconds to read the article?
No. I want 30 seconds to go to the bathroom, but I guess we will. I wanted to read this as a intro to Aleister Crowley.
I mean, can we do it? Just start it off in the
next time.
Yeah. In the words of what's his name, Snoop. So just chill till the next episode.
It's a very mellow song.
Yes.
But I gotta go. I'm gonna pee myself. So stay thirsty, my friends.
All right, sir. You handle your business.
All right.
Later.